Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome here to the hallowed grounds of Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the home to the Yard of Bricks, as it plays host to the season finale for Season 6 of the Dark Horse Racing Series presented by Troy Lee Designs. Here this evening, we got a packed field, we got packed stands, and we can feel the anticipation in the air. We end up having the Daytona 500 in the NASCAR Cup Series as the first race of the season. This is the big one here at the end of the season because not only do we end up crowning ourselves a champion, but every driver in the field has this particular race, this particular track circled on their calendar. It's big in so many ways, especially in the length of the race. It's going to be a 200-lap endurance race for these drivers here this evening. I believe by my last count, 28 drivers are going to be taking the green flag here this evening, and all 4 of the previous Dark Horse 500 winners are in the field here tonight looking to defend their titles. I'm Seth Cole. I'll be joined shortly by Matthew Rodriguez. He's got some pre-race duties to do. We'll be talking to him during said duties in just a little bit, but here tonight we appreciate you joining us here on the Flat Out Racing Network as we're going to be bringing you coverage of one of the biggest races of the season, and it's so big that a lot of times we end up forgetting the fact that there is a championship hanging in the balance. As of right now, it looks like it is a 2-horse race. Craig Forsythe's been the most consistent driver this season, but Jeff Heisong, he is the long shot driver coming into this evening. Mathematically still has a shot. There's a couple of scenarios that absolutely have to go his way. If they do, we might end up seeing one of the biggest underdog stories in the season finale here in the Dark Horse 500's history. Luis Gonzalez Nunez qualified his way onto the pole. These drivers here had their 4-lap average determining their starting position. We're going to bring up the starting lineup, but we want you to bear in mind that tonight's starting lineup, they will be 3 by 3 at the initial start of this race. So you will see it double wide here on your official starting lineup grid, but bear in mind that row 1 will have 1st through 3rd, row 2, 4th through 6th, and on back. Craig Forsythe, who comes in looking like he could very well be the champion here, a former winner of this event back in Season 2. He's going to start on the middle of row 1, and then Ashton Lawson is going to be on the outside of row number 1, as you saw that pace car there making its way around the race leader. Luis Gonzalez Nunez mentioned that Matthew Rodriguez is not with me right now in the booth. That's because he's down there in the pace car, going to be the honorary pace car driver here for these 3 pacing laps. Matt, have you got a copy?
I do. It's very scary down here.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, you talk about scary, but I mean, what about the anticipation? Can you feel it down there on the racetrack? Because I mentioned this race has a big race feel without even putting into the factoring in that we've got a championship hanging in the balance. I mean, these drivers, they look like they're itching to go. Can you feel that behind you?
Yeah, I mean, I heard a few guys over the radio say that they're ready to go this lap, and I was like, I'm still on the racetrack. I don't know about this.
Now, obviously, we're going to be talking a lot about the different scenarios here tonight, but with it being only 2 drivers that are mathematically in the hunt for this championship, what are you anticipating here on this initial start of the race? We do have the faster pair available, so are a lot of drivers, do you think, going to be kind of caution to the wind going into turn 1, or will they settle into the long race that we're expecting?
I mean, obviously, you've got your different scenarios. You've got Craig Forsythe, who really just needs that bonus point to kind of bail him out here. So I really expect him to kind of push the issue early. But for other drivers who may be in a little bit more of a situation where we want to be hitting at the end of a race, I could see them probably taking it a little bit easy. But for some of the one-time off drivers, Ashton Lawson has to be one of those guys in the top of my head. He, I think, would be one of the guys who really likes to push the issue here and try.
I know that obviously you're going to be afterwards making your way up here to the booth. I'll let you get back to it and pacing this field. See you in just a little bit.
Absolutely. I'll try not to wreck it.
So as you see on the top left of your screen, 203 laps. They are running 3 pacing laps here to get everybody gridded up correctly, make sure everything is all squared away before they are turned loose. We are officially running 200 laps. So these drivers will be going green at the completion of lap 3 going on to lap 4. And and they will, as you can see, be 3 by 3 by 3 all the way back. When we showed you your starting lineup, a couple of names that were missing from that grid since they ended up having some incidents during their 4-lap qualifying session. Jason Hand will be rolling off from the 28th position, and Mauro Ramirez will be completing the rest of what will be a 29-car field. A lot of familiar faces in this race. We talked about it the last couple of weeks that we usually end up seeing drivers here in the Dark Horse 500 in a one-off. Henry Bennett is back in the field here tonight. Always seems to be a mainstay up there at the front. We saw Matt Wagner make his second start of the season last week, but he's in the field here tonight, a former winner of this event. You've also got Nick DeGroot, another former winner of this event and a former champion that is in the field here tonight. We've seen him make a couple of starts this season. But then on the flip side, a number of drivers that we don't really know much about. We know of some drivers by name in other series that we broadcasted here on FRN, but we've not necessarily seen them in an open wheel car. And then there's other drivers that we don't have a clue what they're going to bring to the table. We've not seen their racing style. We haven't even recognized their names until seeing them on the starting lineup here this evening. So a lot of different varying of driver experience possibly here tonight. It's going to be interesting to see who's going to come out on top. And of course, with the drivers that have already run in the Dark Horse 500 here in the past, you have to think that that experience being here before, and for many of them ever since Season 2's Dark Horse 500, that experience is going to come into play not only in how you make moves through the field, maintain track position, but also pit road is going to be a very important place here today. We've seen a lot of drivers in the past, they've either exceeded pit road speed, had to come down and serve that penalty, or we've also seen a lot of drivers have issues with the high over 200 mile per hour speeds that they carry off of turn 4, getting that thing down to pit road speed. We've seen a lot of, especially rear brake lockup and drivers spinning out, and there is a wall that separates the front straightaway from pit road, so it's kind of like a funnel, and if that funnel gets blocked up, other drivers that might be trying to make their way onto pit road could have absolutely nowhere to go. We're going to get the indication 1 lap to green as Matthew Rodriguez will bring them down across the yard of bricks. We'll be seeing him next time through 3 and 4, duck down towards the, I believe towards the access road, and then turn it over into the hands of Luis Gonzalez Nunez. Again, want to thank everybody that has tuned into our broadcast here this season. It's the culmination here tonight. Craig Forsyth looking to win this championship. Now, the scenario for Craig Forsyth is basically finish inside of the top 25 and you've got the championship locked up. He could also lock up the championship if he ends up leading a lap, leading the most laps, getting the fastest lap here tonight, or having no incident points at the conclusion of this evening's event. The scenario for Jeff Hysong is he needs for Craig Forsyth to not do any of what I just mentioned, to finish outside the top 25 in the running order, and then it's all easy for Jeff Hysong. He's just got to win the race, have no incident points, and either lead a lap, lead the most laps, or have the fastest lap. He's got to do 2 of those 3. He didn't qualify for the pole. That would have been the other scenario that would have helped him. Hysong going to be starting quite a ways back here in the field tonight, slated to be rolling off the grid in P24. So it's a big uphill climb for Jeff Hysong, but we've seen stranger things happen when it comes to motor racing. You saw there that Matthew Rodriguez ducked the pace car down to the access road. He's heading for pit lane. They'll make their way here through 3 and 4. I've been informed that Luis Gonzalez Nunez is allowed to accelerate at any point he wants once they pass the start of pit road's wall, and everybody else will be ready as well to try and get the best jump they possibly can, have the best track position for the initial start of this race. 200 laps await these drivers as the 6th annual Dark Horse 500 presented by Troy Lee Designs is ready to be underway. The flagman has the green flag in hand. Nunez is up through the gears and we're racing at the Brickyard. File, top 3, top 4. Double wide around the 6th position. That's Charles T. That's going to lose a lot of momentum on the inside, 1 and 2. He's going to drop from 4th all the way back to 8th position in the matter of 2 corners. So it looks like with the lower banking at this racetrack and the high speeds, that inside line, especially at the initial start, really difficult to be able to get the power down and not have the car push up. As we've got one headed down towards the inside wall and hard into the wall. The caution's not going to come out as that was off the racing surface. That's Jim Brooks in the 51. A lot of damage on that machine, as fortunately nobody else involved, but the safer Barry has ripped the front nose off of his machine. He's going to try and nurse that thing to pit lane. Tough break there in the early going for Jim Brooks as battle for the lead here. Nunez going to take the spot back from Craig Forsythe's 27. Matt, you've made your way up here into the booth. I mean, my goodness, didn't take long for these guys to get racy here.
Yeah, and I was looking back at that Jim Brooks incident, and it looks like he may have just overcooked turn 3 just a little bit. Got a little bit of the right fence, almost took off the nose of Jim Harris. Just barely missed him, but tough break for Jim Brooks, especially on lap 1.
Very fortunate it was just a single car incident, especially off of turn 4. We've seen many times where a driver will get out of shape, and while he may not collect anybody, there's usually a stack-up that takes place behind of drivers trying to figure out where that spinning car is going to go.
Absolutely, and I think Craig Forsythe may have gotten his lap led.
Did he lead that lap? I was trying to keep an eye and see
I think
if
it was
he did get that lap led.
I think it was the lap prior. He ended up just barely beating Luis Gonzalez Nunez to the line and got classified as P1, so I think he's led his lap.
The most points that a driver can gain on another here tonight is 90 points. The reason being, maybe the elephant in the room we haven't addressed, this is the second of 2 double points race here this season. So that's how Jeff Heisong was still at the point that we took the green and still mathematically eligible to win the championship. But if what you're saying is true, and Forsythe did get that lap led, we're only 6-7 laps into this race and the championship has already been decided. That kind of gives maybe a little bit of freedom to Jeff Heisong now, because he can go out and he can just run whatever strategy he wants to try and win this race. Doesn't have to worry about points, doesn't have to worry about the championship. Same could be said for Craig Forsythe.
I mean, if I'm Jeff Heisong, I'm going to win anyway. In my mind, if I was going to end up beating Craig Forsythe, I was going to have to win this race regardless. So, obviously, this kind of frees him up a little bit. Like you said, he's going to kind of play around a little bit. But as we see this top 3, you kind of start seeing, may have been Henry Bennett got a little bit 3 wide back there. I think maybe a little bit of a stack up with Charles Teed there, but just a little bit 3 wide.
There's Bennett in the 007. As mentioned, we've seen him up at the front many times here in the Dark Horse 500. He's yet to win one. Maybe tonight will be the night for the driver out of England.
Let's kind of take a look here. And you've got to remember, you may be looking at this and say, oh man, they're all single file, they're not really racing. Well, you've got to kind of think of it like this. It is a 200 lap long race. You still got, on the leaderboard, you've got roughly 197. Math skills are a little bit lacking as of recent. But, sorry, 193, I think? Or basically 100 and something with change.
190 something. 194 right now on our ticker.
Which you got to look at this and say, hey, it's 194 laps that we still have to win. Right now, this is a battle of attrition. Not only saving your stuff, but also being mentally prepared. Because it's one thing for a week in and week out of doing maybe 100 laps at Kentucky, or doing 80 laps in the Milwaukee Mile. 200 laps at Indy with this amount of cars is just a whole different beast, because again, every corner you have to be focused, and if you just lose that focus just for a minute, that fence is right there to catch you. And honestly, that's not a place you want to be.
Now these drivers do have the faster pair that's been available to them all season long, but even with that being known, going back to your point, you can't win the race on the first lap. You can't even win the race on the 50th lap, but you can certainly lose it. So yeah, these drivers certainly have to pace themselves. And Jeff Heisong, one thing that we've noticed out of the 18 car, especially in the last couple of months, he has tremendous long-run speed. It seems like the longer a race goes, the better he gets, the better his position improves. We're 11 laps in. He started back in the 23rd position. He's already picked up 4 spots, currently running in P19.
Let's just take a look at our top 10 here, and just kind of point out some names that maybe we don't normally see in this series. So obviously you got Luis Gonzalez-Nunez leading the field, as he has been these past 2-3 races almost. So you've got Luis leading the charge. You've got Ashton Lawson, who you normally see racing a truck in the Great Lakes Truck Series. He's in an open wheel this week, a little bit strange, a little bit odd, but obviously that transition's working really well for him. Then you've got our normal Forsyth, Ray Vaughn. Nick DeGroot makes another appearance, which love to see him back. And then you kind of go a little bit back, Matt Wagner. Hey, that's awesome. James Watson, that's not really a name that we've seen here too often. Same thing for Henry Bennett. A lot of old faces just kind of popping back up.
Remember I said that all 4 of the former Dark Horse 500 drivers were in the field here tonight? Well, they're actually all up inside of the top 8 as they currently run. Forsyth, Ray Vaughn, DeGroot, and Wagner.
And that just makes this... Here's the thing, to win this race, it is already kind of an illustrious event. I mean, you have a sense of pride winning this. But the fact of everyone who has previously won one of these events are in this race. Also, not to mention, there is a bunch of champions in this race. So, realistically, if you come out on top of all 30 of these drivers, you've done something.
Got an interesting little nugget here from Logan Detweiler watching our broadcast here tonight. Henry Bennett won the Classic IndyCar Series 8500 today. So what kind of experience after already winning an Indy 500 this afternoon? How much momentum, how much experience does that give him an advantage over the rest of the drivers here tonight? He's making a move there on Lawson. And Luis Gonzalez, is he going to go from 3rd to 1st? He is.
Forsyth tried to follow him, but just couldn't complete it. But honestly, I'm looking at Henry Bennett, as much as an advantage that is of, hey, you already won one of these races today, you already know the optimal lines, it also comes with a bit of downside, which is you most likely have done 200 laps already at this track today. By the time you'll be finishing up today, you'll be doing 400 laps at this track, and honestly, the amount of wear and tear that does in the mental state, not really kind of leading you down, but just kind of unfocused, where at the beginning of the race, yeah, you're all focused, you're all hyped, you got adrenaline, yeah, you're ready to race, but by lap 150, like, man, can this checkered flag come out already?
At the same time, your muscle memory must be on peak, though.
Oh, he's got better reflexes than Dale Earnhardt.
If I recall correctly, too, there's been other circumstances that have actually taken Henry Bennett out of the running of winning one of these Dark Horse 500s. I believe it was 2 seasons ago. He was running consistently up inside of the top 3 and had connection problems. Ended up falling out 3/4 of the way through.
That was the story of Henry Bennett, where man would come out on fire every week, always ready to look to win, and it would just be internet issues or some other mistake that just kind of took him out of that contention. Look at Bruno. Actually, that's not Bruno. That's Ashton.
That is. You saw what Henry Bennett did. Says, hey, I'm going to try it myself.
So obviously right now, you kind of have some drivers who are feeling out this track, figuring out where exactly how to make passes. Again, how much draft is an advantage here. Now, I have been messaged by Gavin Fitzgerald apologizing for all 3 of the cars of Ashton Lawson, Gavin Fitzgerald, and Nathan Jump for looking almost identical. And now that I'm looking at it, those things are almost identical.
They are. They're very, very similar. Trying to break the draft there.
Are you ready for an Indy 500 fastback?
I am ready.
So, I'm going to steal Seth's back, so he has to scramble and find a new one.
Okay.
There actually has been one season where the Indianapolis 500 has not been the finale race in a Dark Horse IndyCars. Racing series. What season was that? I think it was season 5.
Season 5. Yep. Last season.
I believe it was due to an iRacing outage on the date that Iowa was supposed to take place, thus pushing Iowa all the way to the end of the season, making for a really weird finale race.
Yeah, by that time the championship really had already been decided, regardless of whether Indy or Iowa was going to be the finale, especially with the fact that Rick Raybon won both of those events and was the championship leader.
A little bit weird.
we talked about the fact that, the different experience levels coming into this race. You mentioned that you weren't even sure about Ashton Lawson, how much open wheel experience he has as he's currently pacing his field. How about the 91 of Bruno Miranda, a driver that we've never seen before here, at least in my knowledge, on FRN, and right now running in the 6th position. Just because there are drivers that we don't recognize the name, it doesn't mean that they're absolute rookies. They probably have experience with open wheel racing. We just haven't seen them in this particular group showcases. So pretty cool to see names that we've never seen before, see what they bring to the table, mixing it up with the familiar faces.
Yeah, I will admit Ashton is the strangest out of left field. I mean, seeing him go week in and week out battling in the truck series and in a whole different class of car where, I've driven both and they do not feel similar to, him being so fast in the truck and then jumping over here into an open wheel car and having that same speed is just incredible. Now, we did have our first retirement of the race, and that has to be Mario Ramirez. It looks like he got a little bit of contact with the outside wall, ended up destroying the right front suspension, just decided to park it. He'll be the first retirement of the day.
Right there for Mario Ramirez, not the Dark Horse 500 he was looking for, as he wasn't able to lay down a full 4 laps for qualifying, and subsequently started at the rear of the field and will be finishing 28th place here tonight. We saw the incident with Jim Brooks off of turn 4 earlier. He did make his way down to his pit stall. He was able to take on the faster pair these drivers have available. He has returned back to the track, but he's currently 1 lap down. Now, this series does have lucky dogs, so if a caution comes out and he is the only driver 1 lap down, he should be back in the lead lap. But I think maybe the biggest tough break for Jim Brooks is the fact that he doesn't have that mulligan available. Had to use it up very early on in this very lengthy race.
So obviously, yes, it does change your entire update. Right now, Jim Brooks is in a kind of cross your fingers and hope scenario because right now he needs to make sure that he stays at least 1 lap down and doesn't go 2 laps down. But not very much he can do to really control his fate here since he's out of the draft. Which brings into a more important point of track position, how vital track position is here. We've seen drivers kind of slice and dice their way through the field, but a lot of this is dictated on pit strategy, which, again, we just haven't seen it today. Now, there obviously is going to be some guys who are going to link up on pit strategy, trying to draft together because they know each other and trust each other. But the bigger question comes from some of those guys who may just be flying by the seat of their pants, or kind of the guys like Craig Forsyth who may have a plan, but they're not going to share it openly because obviously that's kind of their leg up on the competition.
Right now, Bennett the drop of the green flag, plus 11 from his 12th place starting position as he just took the lead back from Ashton Lawson. 7 positions gained by AJ Hobson. He's about to crack into the top 10. He's currently in P12, and then Bruno Miranda, we saw him make a pass on the right foresight for the 5th position. He is up 5 spots from where he started in the field.
Right now, the entire field is mostly on ride modes. I saw someone back there got way wide. It was Joe McAdory, almost. Looks like he got his left side tires on that drainage ditch on the board. Almost lost the back end into the inside wall. Saved it. Great save.
You can see this type of race, these type of cars, it is all about momentum. And as he had to gather that thing up, you saw how much the difference was in the speed of his race car. The drivers that were flying around his outside, going through 1 and 2. Looks like he's got that thing now back up to speed, but that's why we end up seeing the moves that are made.
Oh, car on the wall! That was James Watson, just got a little bit of the fence out of 4. Almost just followed Wagner into it. They have a little bit of side pod damage.
Obviously you can see it visibly. There is very little banking here at Indianapolis in these corners, and with the speed these drivers
car around!
Oh, wow! Big hit for Calvin Fitzgerald.
I think he just got a little bit unsettled with James Watson being there on the bottom. Almost got loose, checked up, and I don't know who hit it. I think it was Jim Herrick who actually finished the job.
Somehow we are still not under caution. That was apparently down below the racing surface, according to iRacing officials. I'm not seeing a whole heck of a lot of damage on that 16, so he might be okay. Well, he's coming to pit road now, but
I think he may be crabbing a little bit, but I'm trying to do a little bit of a damage report on Jim Herrick. That's 2 incidents he's already been kind of around / a part of. Looks like the left side of that wing, he kind of crumpled up like a small paper airplane. And I'm watching back there of the 39 of James Watson, and while it doesn't look like it's slow, I do notice there's a lot of damage on the right side pod, a lot of damage on the right side of the rear spoiler, where the rear spoiler almost looks disconnected.
Oh, we got another wreck. We got a wreck. I can't even see the car, but he's down the inside wall off of 3, in the middle of 3 and 4. That's Bruno Miranda, who was running up inside the top 10.
And they're dropping like fly. Man, he is in that wall.
He is stuck in the wall, and again, must have been below the racing. No caution has come out.
Looks like the same thing we saw of Joe McAdory, but unfortunately Bruno Miranda was not as lucky as Joe McAdory. So he put those left sides right down in the drainage ditch, got the rear end just a little bit active, and that's all it takes, and the rear end came right on around. He went to go correct it, and lawn darted straight to the inside fence.
Last season's winner of the Dark Horse 500, Rick Ravon, swung around, and for the first time today, he will lead here at Indianapolis. And all those drivers we saw have those incidents. Multiple drivers have come to pit lane to take on their fast apparels, like Gavin Fitzgerald did. Also, apparently, Jason Hand and Dylan McIntosh, they're now on pit road. Bruno Miranda, he brought his car down pit lane, and he's made the left-hand turn to the garage. So he's going to join Mauro Ramirez out of this race. And wow, I mean, you know, at least 2, maybe all 3 of the incidents we've had so far probably could have put out a possibility of a caution coming out, but since we haven't had a yellow flag come out, we got to start talking about pit road. I think we got driver diving for pit lane right now. That's Joseph Morales in the 16.
So the big thing about pit road is there's this bump right at the entrance of pit road that if you're not prepared, it will kind of bump the car, and you will simply just go right on around. But the good news is, this pit road is, even though it looks quite small, it is one of the wider pit roads. It still has that concrete right on the pit box, so you've got to time your braking just right. Another big thing is on pit exit. You have to follow that access road all the way around the corner, so you have to take a little bit of caution driving out. One of those guys who I really thought should have came to pit road earlier had to be that 39 car of James Watson. He was driving about 10-15 miles off the pace. It's kind of one of those things where you hope for a caution, but the longer you stay out, the deeper you dig yourself in the hole.
Watson did come down pit road the same lap as Joseph Morales. We got a couple more on pit road. This time, Jim Herrick in the 40, Charles Johnson in the 8. One thing I've noticed, and I'm a little puzzled by it.
Brandon Gates almost lost the back end. And I'm seeing a lot of these guys losing the back end during the corners. I'm not sure if it's the tires or really just how we're driving the car.
Yeah, I mean, we know that obviously the right front Firestone's going to pack a lot of heat with the low banking in these corners.
Oh, car around!
Oh, we got a big wreck on the front straightaway. Oh, and now we got more flipping up ahead of him. That's Corley and T.
Matt Wagner, almost. Ooh, that could have been a lot worse than it was.
Car that is capsized there, that's Charles Teed. Corley in the 7. 3-car incident here on the front straightaway, and on lap 30, the caution comes out officially for the first time tonight.
So I think we need to break this down in a few parts. Obviously, we need to take a look at what exactly happened to Matt Wagner, because that car was way out of shape.
Let's go back to turn 4.
Really, it looks like Matt Wagner was kind of loose throughout the entire corner and just never could get it back straight. And just
got it right here.
pretty much just never could get back straight. Pops the rear end. Does his best to try and keep it straight, just can't do it. Slides back into traffic, taps the wall, and just he didn't even hit Teed, but that's a whole nother story. So let's go back from Teed's.
Yeah, what happened there was Corley was moving drivers left to avoid Wagner, and he had Teed to his inside, so he kind of squeezed Teed into that inside pit wall.
And looking at that, so yeah, realistically, I think Corley kind of slowed up a little bit more. Didn't see Matt Wagner really until the last minute because of the smoke. Kind of jerked off to the left. And as soon as he did that, Charles T was not expecting a car to be in his path and just ran straight over him.
Obviously, with seeing how loose a number of these drivers have gotten, I don't necessarily recommend slamming on the brakes, but it's frozen field cautions here, so as soon as you see that yellow out, wouldn't you start decreasing your speed? It looked like the 7 and the 50, they approached where the 3 was sitting in the middle of the track with quite a bit of speed still.
Yeah, I will say there definitely could have been a little bit more checkup. However, with the no caution wrecks that we've seen the last couple of times, I could understand the hesitation. However, there also stands the reason to take things. While Gary Corley was slowing down for the accident, he really only slowed down to 171, and even then, your reaction time at that speed is very limited. Now, Charles T was about 30 miles an hour faster coming up on Gary Corley, but again, we're still talking about triple-digit speeds here. I mean, your reaction time is pretty much split second. So once you make that decision, you kind of have to live with it, whether you like it or not. And unfortunately, both of them made a decision to go to the same place and just kind of met in the middle.
I have to think that we were somewhere in the 5 to 10 lap range of possibly seeing our first round of green flag pit stops. So Rick Raybon and company, they were able to come down pit lane here under caution. Rick ended up coming down as the leader and leaving as the leader. Looks like Jim Herrick is going to be second. Herrick had actually come to pit lane prior to that caution, remember, and managed to stay on the lead lap. So he might have come down with the leaders, taken on just a little bit less fuel, just topped off the fuel tank, and he gained a ton of track position as a result. He'll join Raybon inside the top 5 along with Henry Bennett, Nick DeGroot, and Craig Forsyth for this upcoming restart.
Looking at some of the cars here, you have to wonder what the strategy is. Obviously, you've got your normals working together. I mean, you got to kind of factor in that Henry Bennett and Nick DeGroot probably are going to be in cahoots. Same thing with kind of Craig Forsyth. He usually kind of picks and chooses who he's working with. Ashton Lawson, Nathan Jump, obviously running the same cars. They probably are same in cahoots with strategy. Kind of looking throughout the field, you start to wonder who's got the right strategy here, or who's going to be the one to take the risks.
Well, we saw Dylan McIntosh rather. He was ahead of the leader when the lights went out atop the pace car, so he was able to take the wave around. He is now going to be 1 lap down in the 25th position. I have no idea who got the lucky dog under that yellow flag, because we had a number of drivers that were a lap down. I'm assuming it might have possibly been the 16 of Gavin Fitzgerald. So we're going to have about a half dozen drivers battling for the next free pass position, including T, Charles Johnson, Jim Brooks, Jason Hand, and McIntosh, who just took the wave around to go from -2 to -1.
Let me note this, where I've noticed a lot of cars in the previous events we've done for Dark Horse Racing Series. There's been a lot of cars today that has really just been out of shape. They have not really felt or looked comfortable. So I'm kind of wondering if that's going to persist later into the race.
Green flag back in the air as soon as the iRacing pace car hits pit lane. The race leader, in this case Rick Raybon, can accelerate at any point that he wants to. He's going to lead the field out of turn 2 and down the back straightaway. Battle is going to be side by side back outside the top 15. That's where you find Gavin Fitzgerald and Joseph Morales, 2 of the last drivers on the lead lap.
I'm noticing about a 2-wide battle here with AJ Hobson and Luis Gonzalez-Nunez. Luis Gonzalez-Nunez slowly trying to work his way back up to that lead pack.
I had to chuckle when we saw Nunez out in front earlier on, because remember what he said in his post-race interview last week? I don't like Indianapolis, but right now seems to be taking to it pretty well. He's been consistently up inside of the top 10. Right now, he's the furthest back he's been all day long, currently P7.
Man, I think we've really kind of figured that out all season. There were a lot of guys who said, man, I don't really like this track. They just had a lot of luck.
Don't like the track to be successful. I'll use that in the future. I'll let you know how it turns out.
I expect all wins.
Jim Herrick with that track position gain based off the strategy there. He's in that second spot, number 40, just in front of Henry Bennett. And even right there, I was noticing, see a lot of bobbing, weaving back and forth there from Herrick. I don't think that's necessarily trying to affect the air, trying to get a run. I think these cars, for the most part, a lot of them really unsteady here through the corners. So what do you think is leading to that? Is it the low banking? Is it the setup of these particular cars? could the weather be playing a factor?
It could be a little bit of a setup. It could be a little bit of the driving patterns. But also, I'm noticing the track temp's about 108, which doesn't seem... Oh, contact! Craig Forsyth!
And caution's out, second time tonight. Ashton Lawson's the other driver. Look out on
Car in the wall behind! Looks like it was Brandon Gates.
It is indeed the 76 who's already teleported to pit road. Another big multi-car wreck. Again, involving drivers up inside of the top 10. This time, the now champion this season, Craig Forsyth, former winner of this event, and Ashton Lawson, two drivers that had qualified their way up on the front row, second and third off the grid.
And
What
I'm
happened here?
I'm trying to look here, and I'm a little bit divided here. See, I'm a little bit divided in the category of Ashton kind of came up in the Forsyth. I think maybe he was expecting Craig to go a little bit higher out of the corner, but I'm a little bit confused on where he expects him to go.
Take a look from the aerial view here.
I don't know. I'll let you call that one because I don't know. I think that's kind of the definition of a racing.
Forsyth definitely did have more room up there on the top side, but he's not obligated to go up there. If you're on the inside line, you've basically got, you're in the lane that's going to push up, so
my thought
you're in a compromised position. I think if you're the inside line car, you got to be the one to lift. You got to be the one to bail out.
He would be compromising his line by going higher on the track.
Right.
Because already he's at a disadvantage being on the higher lane here. I don't know. I said, in my opinion, that's kind of a racing incident.
One of those gray areas. And here's what happened with Brandon Gates. I think Gates had an issue even before he got up to that incident.
I think Gates
got wide here by Gary Corley. Is there gap whack there?
I think that was a little bit of gap whack.
A little bit of gap whack, maybe in reaction to Corley being down there, but rides the wall all the way through turn 3 and then pounds the inside wall through the center of 3 and 4. So
it looks entirely
different incidents.
Looks like for Gates, looks like the contact with the inside wall is completely unintentional. I mean, his steering wheel is cranked to the right, he's turning, he's not walking the correct car. Unfortunately, it's not hit him. That is, man, they're kind of dropping like flies in this race.
Yeah, right there. It certainly looks like there was gap whack contact. Look at this hit. Gosh, that was fortunately a couple of feet down from that opening. Very lucky that there's a safer barrier there, although I say lucky, and we've seen a couple of drivers nose into that safer barrier. The safer barrier kind of like throws them around like a beach ball or something. Just tearing up race cars left and right. A lot of big names here in just the last 10 laps. Already a faster pair in the hole. Matt Wagner, Charles Teague, Gary Corley. Now Ashton Lawson and Craig Forsyth can be added to that list.
And you know what, I'm kind of sitting here? I'm thinking, man, this is looking mighty fine for a first-time winner.
You know, I'm almost wondering if you should have stayed in that pace car. You could have been running the top 20 right now.
Hey, you had mean 52-second lap times. I can do this.
So second caution of the night. We haven't even reached the quarterly way through this race. Lucky dog under this yellow flag. Fortunate for Charles Teed. He is going to be able to get back on the lead lap. Looks like we're going to have 19 drivers on the lead lap. When we go back green, we've got 7 drivers that are currently off the lead lap. 6 of them are 1 lap down and on the racetrack as we currently speak. Jim Brooks, Matt Wagner, Dylan McIntosh, Brandon Gates, Charles Johnson, and Jason Hand. Ashton Lawson, who was not able to drive his race car back to pit road due to having to teleport back to pit lane. He's sitting there for a couple of extra laps before he can take on service, and he is currently running 3 laps down to the leader, so he's going to need a couple more cautions to come out, well, more than a couple, to be able to get back onto the lead lap. Tough break there here, making his first appearance in the Dark Horse 500, and as we saw, running up there inside of the top 5, top 10, actually qualified on the front row in the second position, I believe it was, no, third place. So And looks like actually now his day is done. Looks like they've just pushed him back behind the wall. So that'll make 3 drivers that will not reach the conclusion at this point in time. Lawson, Bruno Miranda, and Mauro Ramirez as iRacing pace car slides to pit road there. And will turn this field loose once again.
Now, you want to know the caution record for Indianapolis, since we had 2 cautions already. The caution record for Indianapolis Motor Speedway, for the Dark Horse Racing Series, was actually tied twice in Season 2 and Season 4 at 11 cautions. However, Season 4 had actually 34 caution laps as opposed to Season 2's 32 caution laps.
And
So you think we're going to break that?
And if I remember correctly, the reason for that, Season 2, the race ended under yellow when Craig Forsyth ended up winning, so they ended up having only, I think it was 2 less pacing laps with the timing of the yellow in the closing stages.
Also, I don't know if we're going to hit that limit, but right now, with how we're racing, I could see that happening.
Well, I mean, as of right now, if we look at incidents that maybe should have warranted a caution, we went back on our 5th
Should have
restart
been
right there. Yeah, 4th or 5th.
So yeah, I can easily see it where this track, at least today, has been a lot more treacherous than it's been in previous years.
Bennett works back East Bend today in the 11th spot. Mixing it up with Frankie Francicia. Working on that name here tonight. Very interesting name. It rolls off the tongue, I'll tell you. It rolls off the tongue, but then the brain kind of thinks, did I say it correctly?
You're a better man than me.
Oh, got a car in the wall back there. I believe that was Matt Wagner, who was battling with Jim Brooks for the lucky dog position right now. I'm pretty sure he brushed the wall just a bit. You saw, I believe that was Gavin Fitzgerald had to jump out of line to avoid him.
I'm just looking at the side of Matt Wagner's car, and honestly, he may have lucked out a little bit here. It looks like a little bit of a shark fin on the right side has a little bit of damage, maybe a little bit of side pod damage on the right side, but not as extreme as we saw in the 39 car earlier.
We haven't talked about yet. Now up inside the top 5, 36 of Eric Peterson. We mentioned about the fact Henry Bennett, season after season, has been up in the conversation for a Dark Horse 500 win. Eric Peterson fits that bill as well.
Yeah, I didn't really want to talk about Eric Peterson because it seems like every time I talk about him, just something terrible happens.
That's why I brought him up, so you didn't have to.
Unfortunately, kind of going back to Eric Peterson, it's kind of a story of, is there a way that he could have lost this race? And unfortunately, if you name it, there most likely is a way he's lost a race in the series. Either he qualifies on pole and ends up spinning on race start, or honestly just kind of mistimed pit strategy or mistakes on pit road, or just spinning the car, caught in accidents. I mean, you name it, he's been there. So obviously he's one of those guys who are looking for just a little bit of luck.
Right behind him, you've got AJ Hobson with 63. Hobson started this race from 19th, now trying to break into the top 5. Good run right now for AJ. Then behind him, 69, Glenn Mazan. We've only seen him make a few starts here near the close of the season. Kind of seems like he runs towards the back, maybe gaining experience. Now feels pretty brave here. He's got some good track position. He's in the 7th spot, so good job for him.
Absolutely. And obviously, I will admit, I was one of those guys pre-race where I was like, I don't know if he's going to be able to keep up with some of these guys. I've been happy to kind of been proved wrong here.
Jeff Heisong in the 18. He's currently running in the 8th position, just ahead of Gary Corley. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Corley is the highest running driver that has had to use his fast repair. Of course, we saw him flipping on the front straightaway when our first caution came out.
And I will say, it is nice to see Jim Harrigan.
You gotta wonder if some drivers might have looked back at what Jim Herrick did coming to pit road quite a bit earlier than what was projected for his first green flag pit stop. He was able to stay on the lead lap. This racetrack, 2.5 miles in length, so very easy to be able to get your service done, leave pit road before getting put a lap down. We might see some drivers kind of go through the short pit strategy if we get into another round of green flag
Matt Wagner.
pit stops.
Matt Wagner looks like he's done. That car does not look right. I mean, that right front suspension looks destroyed.
Yeah, that right front tire looks like it's, oh yeah. Those tires are facing 11 o'clock right now.
I think he's done. When the turn 1 went a little bit too high, and just scraped the wall all the way out of 1 into 2, all the way to the back straightaway. And unfortunately, I think that's done bad.
So far, 2 former Dark Horse 500 drivers have fallen victim to the Yard of Bricks here today. Craig Forsyth, we saw, have his big wreck in 3 and 4, and Matt Wagner there in the 3 car. Looks like he may be out of it. 2 drivers that are former winners that haven't had an issue yet are currently running in 1st and 3rd. Rayvon in the 1 and Nick DeGroot in that black and yellow 89.
Rick Rayvon's kind of an interesting story here. Up and down season has not been free of controversy. But one thing is undeniable out of all of that is man's got speed. Man is fast. And that is one thing that has never been denied. Now that's the one thing where seeing a Rick Rayvon win at Indy would not be the strangest thing that I've seen in this series. Man, those top 3 look so identical.
Rayvon holds the record for 2nd highest most laps led in a Dark Horse 500 last season. Led 69 of the 200 laps. Driver that holds the record is 2 cars behind him. That was Nick DeGroot, who ended up leading 94 laps back in season 2. The only difference was Rick Rayvon won the race that he led the most laps. DeGroot finished 2nd to Forsyth in the race where he was out in front the majority of the time.
And it looks like we've had 2 more retirements. Ashton Lawson and Matt Wagner decided to hang it up. Just a little bit too much damage, just a little bit too much to repair. Ashton Lawson, obviously great start, just couldn't really recover from that incident. Matt Wagner just kind of got the short end of the stick, just a little bit too much damage.
Right there, a number of drivers already out of the race, a number of drivers that are trying to battle to get back on the lead lap, and a lot of the drivers that we've seen up inside the top 10, even the top 5 at certain points of this race. These drivers went back green on lap 32. They have gone roughly about 16, 17 laps on this stint, so we'd be right around maybe halfway through a fuel run for these guys. And with that being said, now we're starting to see Henry Bennett making his way back up towards the front. He was, what did I say, 13th, 14th on the restart. He's picked up half of the spots necessary to get back up into the lead in that clean air.
There's one guy I wouldn't want to go against. It's Henry Bennett.
Yes.
That man is fast.
Gerald in 16, very low there as he was trying to make a move on Eric Peterson.
Car on the wall on the back. Oh, car flipping! Nathan jumps up on the fence. And it looks like it was Jim Brooks. Oh.
And Brooks upside down, stuck in the wall, and I believe Jim Brooks at the time was in the free pass position. Instead, he, along with Jump, are going to be the 3rd caution of the day, and Brooks had already used his faster pair. Day is done for driver 51.
Man, Charles T had an interesting view of that.
Here's a look at what happened. Looks like Jim, it's almost like that car didn't turn for him through the center of 3 and 4. Way wide into the wall.
Forsyth may have not been expecting that to happen, so he kind of just jerked out of the way. And man, Nathan Jump just got destroyed.
The driver's first instinct when they're up in the wall is to turn the wheel to the left, try and get off the wall as soon as possible. And it seems like when Jim Brooks did that, once the safer barrier released him, it just shot him down the path of Nathan Jump.
And I feel for Nathan Jump. There is effectively nothing that's going to
no warning.
But man, that was a pretty violent. Like I said, I think as soon as he got to that barrier.
View, let's take an onboard 50.
Yeah, he had some choice words after that. I can't repeat.
Wow. He's just party. You see up ahead, Craig Forsyth using that access road to make sure he was free and clear of the wreck.
And looking at Forsyth's car, I think he may have gotten a bit of damage on that.
Yeah, a little right side damage maybe. Sideswiping Brooks.
It doesn't look like any side damage. It honestly looks like suspension damage because I'm noticing that wheel is aimed just a little bit oddly, but there's no damage to the body panel. So I mean, if he could just kind of put up the wheel after a little bit wonky, he should be fine.
Does the camera survive on Nathan Jump's car? Wow.
Man, how they made these cars safer.
And I love how through all that, still kept that thing in 6th gear.
I mean, good hustle by him for, again, being up in the fence and then being able to quickly jump back on throttle, get back to pit road, repair the car, and still be out there where you haven't lost the lap.
Yeah, we've seen a number of drivers actually be able to do that here this evening. I've been really surprised. Craig Forsyth, I thought, would be a lap down after his incident. Charles Teed, the same, but they were able to hustle back to pit lane as well, get their fast repair done before getting quite a lap down. So, yeah, I mean, the length of this racetrack does have its advantages, and that might be one of the advantages where drivers don't necessarily have to fight to get the lucky dog, get back in the lead lap after they've run into trouble.
Yeah, so obviously it's kind of a double-edged sword where, yes, it's great, the fact that you're able to jump right back in it, but it's also terrible for the fact of, again, this kind of puts you down in that hole where you don't have that mulligan to go off of.
So you saw a couple of drivers hit pit lane. That was Brandon Gates and Dylan McIntosh, neither of which were in position for the lucky dog. Lucky dog went to Charles Johnson in the 8. The 00 of Jason Hind, you saw stay out. The lights going out in the pace car. He goes around via the wave around to get his lap back. So as things stand right now, when we go back green, we'll have 23 cars still running, 21 of them currently on the lead lap. Again, the drivers out of the race at this point in time. They'll finish 24 through 28. Jim Brooks, Matt Wagner, Ashton Lawson, Bruno Miranda, and Mauro Ramirez. But I'm looking through the list here, Matt, and when I start getting outside of the top 8, there's a lot of 1 out of 1s there in the fast repair column.
Yeah, so like I said, it has me a little bit concerned where I will say at this race, at least at this rate, they've kind of been dropping like flies where, I mean, I think the least cars we've had finish one of these Dark Horse Indy car, or Indy 500, sorry, Indy 500s, had to be 11 cars. And that was in a field of 24 when we had a field of 30 plus. I mean, the most cars that we had finished was 16. So I think we still got a bit of this field to dwindle down.
Kind of trending in that direction of maybe losing half the field before the conclusion of this race, as we just crossed over the threshold of 25% through tonight's event. Still a marathon still to go as Rick Ravon back through the gears, gets us back underway, and ooh, somebody back there had to make an evasive maneuver. That might have been the 88 of Nathan Jump. Y'all keep it pointing in the right direction, still stay under green, however.
Yeah, notice the jump seems to be taken a little bit more conservatively, or at least it doesn't seem to be fully comfortable with that car. And I think what the result of that is a little bit of, again, at least I always talk on length about it, which may be a bit boring, but that stock car to open wheel jump. For guys who are not really familiar with these open wheel cars, they really are at a huge disadvantage because what we know in stock cars versus what we know in open wheel cars are two drastically different things. And I see Nathan Jump kind of coming down the pit road now, so I'm not sure if there may be another issue with that.
Maybe there was a penalty handed out for something that might have happened on that start. Maybe couldn't change lanes for the start and finish line. Obviously, we saw a jump low on somebody, but we'll try and follow up on that. But we know that obviously when the field starts getting spread out, that's when drivers kind of sit and ride and wait for that next trip to pit road. But when things are bunched up at the initial restarts, drivers try and get every position they possibly can. It's about the closest they're going to be until the next restart. And we saw a lot of different passes, a lot of battles take place there on that last restart lap. AJ Hobson made his way around both Rick Ravon and Jim Herrick to go from third to the race lead, and there was a 3-wide battle for a brief moment between Eric Peterson, Jeff Heisong, and Gavin Fitzgerald. Actually, Fitzgerald and Heisong, they're still battling side by side. That's for 8th place. I'll
tell you that Jeff Heisong isn't one of those flashy guys where he'll kind of wow you with some insane moves, but he's one of those guys who just silently and stealthily moves up the race. And again, he's just one of those guys where you, at the end of the race, you look at him like, man, how did you get up here?
consistent too. If I recall correctly, he ended up basically kind of just slowly working his way closer to the front of the field week after week. I think he had back-to-back fifths, then it was back-to-back thirds, and then we saw him finish in the runner-up position in back-to-back races. He's looking for that one position better, and certainly I don't think would turn down to be here tonight at the home of the Yard of Bricks as Rick Raybon putting the pressure back on A.J. Hobson.
Look at Charles Dean! Charles Dean is slowly working his way up through this field. He's kind of trying to leapfrog cars. You can tell he wants this.
Craig Forsyth just ahead of him as well, trying to get to the inside of Jeff Hysong. So we've got a lot of cars right here. Could throw a blanket over, and not a whole lot of space being given here in some of these side-by-side battles.
And that's kind of the moment where you need someone on your team, or at least that kind of voice in the back of your head that kind of speaks some reason here. You kind of have to give a reminder that it's lap 58. Yes, you can't bank on another caution happening, but at least speaking ahead, right now is not the time that we really need to be pushing and insanely racing. It's kind of that time where we need to kind of walk some laps here. Yeah, it's okay to be in 12th, 13th place as long as we're in it at the end.
You talked about the fact of having friends, and while this isn't a super speedway, obviously 3, 4, 5 cars are going to make a lot more speed lined up than one driver out there all by his lonesome, and we haven't yet really seen it come into play because we only had a couple of drivers with the short pit strategy when the first green flag cycle was taking place just prior to the caution coming out. But I mean, there's obviously got to be some team communication that's going on with drivers saying, hey, I'm pitting this lap, please pit with me, so that we have a big group and we're able to, if not make up time on drivers that are ahead of us, gap the drivers that are behind us.
So realistically, what having teammates and having friends does in this race is maybe not the same effects as we'd see in the super speedway. Have drafting partners and things like that. Yes, you can coordinate pit stops. Yes, you can draft with your teammates as you're coming off pit road to make sure your pit strategy does work. And they're extremely helpful when you're in a pack like this and you're trying to all progress, but hey, I mean, I need to kind of leapfrog this guy. Can you make sure you don't give him a draft? Or hey, can you just kind of leave me out of a little bit of a draft so I can get by? Or hey, can you block this guy? I mean, any bit of it helps. But what most vital they are just the fact of having someone to talk to, someone to pass the time with through this race, where it gets your mind off the race, it gets your mind off the seriousness. You're not focusing on what lap it is, you're just, yeah, I'm riding around, having fun. Okay, what lap can we pit? And then focusing on where to go from there.
Almost 60 laps in the books here for this 200-lap marathon season finale at Indianapolis. Some contact there between Dylan Moskowitz and James Watson, but A.J. Hobson currently leads the way here at Indy. We talk about the fact these drivers have to pace themselves, well, the commentators have to as well. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back here in just a few moments. You're not going to miss a thing, though, because we're going to let you see all the action with FRN side by side. Caution out for the 4th time here tonight in the Dark Horse 500. You saw it there with our side-by-side, the 16 of Gavin Fitzgerald getting out of shape. Go back and see what happened.
And I think it's just a little bit of that same thing where we're kind of a little bit of inexperience plus a little bit of just trying to push for everything you can in this race car right now. A little bit in deep into the corner, got some tires right there, a little bit wide. I think at this point the tires are a little bit wide, pushing for a few laps and came straight into the fence, bombed right off, and unfortunately it kind of left him with the short end of the stick straight into the tire barrier, or straight into the barrier, and man, it kind of flipped.
Usually, what we're seeing with a number of these drivers just kind of getting their cars getting grabbed and, as you said, flipped over, normally more reminiscent of when a car gets into a tire barrier, not necessarily a safer barrier. But then again, you have to consider that the front end of these race cars are kind of like lawn darts, so I don't think it really matters what kind of a wall they hit. It would probably have the same result.
Yeah, so it's not a great situation, but obviously this kind of stacks the field back up, gets everyone ready for that pit stop. AJ Hobson's leading them all down.
Brandon Gates was the recipient of the lucky dog here, being the first car 1 lap down, and there's the mass migration to pit lane.
McIntosh is staying out.
He's a lap down, so he would have to pit the following lap. We'll see if though this was a relatively short stint. I think it was 14 laps, so maybe McIntosh might take the wave around here, and if he does, that would have 21 drivers on the lead lap as
Rick Ravon is
I was just gonna say, about half a car length. Rick Ravon gonna beat AJ Hobson off of pit lane. Remember, Ravon started 5th, so he had a pit stall closer towards the pit road exit. Might have been able to get the launch necessary to get that advantage to be the one to lead us back to green.
I think this is really the point where, at this point in the race, as we start transitioning almost to halfway, you start seeing the experience come out in the field. Guys who have done these races, who have experience with this car and how it acts. I mean, obviously, you see Rick Ravon, see Jim Herrick, see Luis Gonzalez, Nick DeGroot, Eric Peterson, guys who you know have good experience with this car. Maybe not overwhelming pace, but very good experience. They know how the car drives. They're used to these long endurance races. You start to see that skill come out. And this is really where they start to thrive.
So with our 4th caution waving here at Indianapolis, did you say record was 11 cautions?
11 cautions.
At 4 in the first 60 laps of this race. Well, one thing is, though, if we end up having more cautions here and we have as many drivers that have already used their faster pair, if the field starts to dwindle down, the likelihood of late race cautions are going to get fewer and fewer.
I can see where you're going with this.
It's like Moskowitz came back down pit road and topped off the fuel tank. Dylan McIntosh did indeed stay out. Did not come to pit road, so he took the wave around. We'll have 20 drivers on the lead up. No. Brandon Gates, who I thought was going to be the lucky dog, he's still being scored 1 lap down.
I think it gave it to Dylan McIntosh because
yeah, it might have been. Yep.
Gates went in the pit road the same time the leaders did. Okay. So I think he lost his lucky dog.
So Gates will be the only driver off the lead lap as Gavin Fitzgerald, who was involved in our latest caution. He's gone back to the garage area and he'll be finishing 22nd here tonight. Brings our garage total up to 7 drivers at this point in time. Rick Ravon's going to be the leader when we go back green. Hobson in 2nd, Jim Herrick 3rd. And Luis Gonzalez Nunez and Nick DeGroot. I'm a little worried for the field right now with that 89 because we've only mentioned him up inside the top 3 maybe once. He's been quietly riding there in that 5th position. I think he's playing his cards a little close to the chest, not really showing exactly what he's got right now.
And that's what I'm kind of fearing a little bit, where DeGroot's one of those experienced guys who, kind of one of those guys I know who will play coy a little bit and not reveal what he has So I'd be a little bit concerned as we go later into this race with him hanging around.
Saw AJ Hobson make the move for the lead on the last restart. This restart, no different. Look to the inside of Rick Raybon, takes the spot off of turn 2, and he'll lead the field down the back straightaway. Raybon going to try and cross him over, though, heading for turn 3.
I'm seeing here, obviously you see the top 2 guys fighting, but I'm seeing those back 3 out of the top 5 who are just kind of riding around a little bit. I can't tell if they got something bigger in mind or if they're just kind of letting this one play out.
But they're definitely still within the draft, so if they wanted to get up there to the top 2, they certainly could, as Hobson again comes to the inside of Rick Raybon. And I know I ask this every single Dark Horse 500, but we see the swapping for the lead going on right now. We've seen it in seasons past. They're setting up scenarios here for the end of the race, right? To kind of see where is the position that you want to make the move, to make sure that even if anything else, your front wing is the first one back to the start-finish line when the checker flag's waving.
For that, I'm not positive. I feel like my answer changes almost every year, though. I'm just, again, this race changes almost so much every time you run it. But you think you finally got it figured out, and then again, just the car is so much different, the track's so much different, the tires are so much different.
And definitely something has been different this season. We've seen a lot more drivers getting out of shape and wrecking their race cars with no contact from any other driver, maybe more so than we've seen in Dark Horse 500's past. We've got 9 drivers currently up in this lead pack. Then it's a second and a half back to 10th place running Jeff Heisong. There you see him with Gary Corley. Then there's another pack of about 5 or 6 being led by Charles Teague. So it's definitely got rather split up there on that restart. Is that Brandon Gates, I believe, on the inside access road coming back onto the racetrack. Looks like his coming to pit lane and not taking Lucky Dog is a little more sinister. As he's now 3 laps down in that number 76.
I've seen a lot of guys really start to attack. Normally, a lot of these guys, at least in kind of seasons past, have stayed above that white line on the bottom of the turns, going down to that drainage ditch they have. And Eric Peterson got a little bit of the fence. Looking to his car, I think he's got a little bit, right side damage, a little bit of right side damage on the side pod and the fin. Definitely going to slow him down just a little bit. No spoiler damage, so I think he may still be good in that category.
We saw even last week at Twin Ring Motegi what just a little bit of damage on the race car is going to do in affecting your speed for the remainder of the run. There you see Bennett going to make his way around Eric Peterson as well. So Peterson's just going to hope that he can latch on to the tail end of this lead pack, not lose this draft.
I don't think he's lost a ton of speed yet. I don't think he can be a lead car. I think the straightaway is all it's going to kind of do it. But yeah, I think right now he's hurt his car where his top end is about 10, 15 miles an hour slower than Henry Bennett in front of him. And this kind of falls into one of those weird categories of the race where pitting right now would be the easiest option because he's already so high up in the field. If he pits right now, he can get those damage repaired and he may or may not fall a lap down. However, he can stay out and hope for a caution to come out. But in turn, again, just look at how much he's getting swallowed up by the single car of Jeff Heisong. I mean, again, this is going to keep happening lap over lap, and this car is going to be worse and worse to drive each lap. I don't know.
Timing of these cautions, I would have to think, has certainly thrown off fuel strategy that drivers would have had at the start of this race, but is that maybe a reason why Peterson, even though right now he's definitely losing time with that damage, he's just trying to reach a certain fuel number? He does have a faster pair that he can take on when he makes that next pit stop, but if he pits now, does that like throw off a pit fuel strategy that he currently has in place?
It would. But unfortunately, this is kind of the price that you pay for making a mistake on tracks such as Indy. Where, again, this is kind of a risk versus reward. Right now, he's risking it by staying out where he's losing a bunch of time. Right now, Charles Teague's last lap is a 41.196. Eric Peterson's last lap was a 41.860, so I mean, he's losing about a second a lap, even in draft. So when he's out of draft, he's going to be losing about 2 seconds. Right now, he's hoping for a quick caution that comes out. He's not a part of it, so he can come down, take that faster pair, still kind of be on the same strategy as everyone else, but again, not in a worse situation. It looks like Eric Peterson just said he's pitting, so I made that decision.
To look on board with Peterson, just how fast these drivers approach pit road. Peterson was running in the 6th position before he had his contact with the wall. He had dropped back as far as 14th before eventually making the call to hit pit lane. We'll see if he is indeed going to use his faster pair here on this pit stop, and looks like the answer is
yes.
well, at this point in time, no. And there it is. Yep.
And it looks like he will go a lap down, just barely, but again, right now he is.
Oh, another car just hit the wall hard, and he's in the inside wall. That is Joseph Morales in the 60. He comes back onto the racetrack, but there was no oncoming traffic, so we stay green.
He did a great job just keeping that all the way down the bottom of the racetrack. Got really lucky with being on pit road, but obviously that is a huge hit. And I'm going to tell you, the guy who is screaming right now has to be Eric Peterson, screaming, "That's a caution! That's a caution!"
Peterson right now is still on the tail end of the lead lap, but he's going to get swallowed up very quickly and put a lap down. As we look back and see what happened to Morales off of turn 4. Just barely brushes the wall with that right rear tire, snaps loose into the inside wall, and boy, right there, if the car of Morales came back on the racetrack any further, that was, I believe, Dylan McIntosh, who was in the vicinity, and we could very well have had a caution flag fly, but since he stayed down as low as he did, we remain under green. Now the good news right now for Eric Peterson is the fact that if he does go a lap down, he'll be the only car 1 lap down. He won't really be battling anybody for the free pass. The only other driver a lap down, -3, is Brandon Gates. Morales, who had just had that big hit, he's actually gone back to the garage area. So either way, whether he stays ahead of the leader or whether he gets put a lap down, Eric Peterson's certainly going to be lobbying for a yellow flag.
Yeah, so right now, Eric Peterson, he does have an advantage where he's at the front of the field. He is on pace of one of the fastest cars on the track. So, again, he's kind of that better scenario. Plus, I think he has a little bit of fresher tires, too. So, he can hold out, but he's obviously kind of jumping up and down, saying, "Is that debris here? Is that debris here?" Again, just trying to get anything for a caution.
Rayvon making the pass at AJ Hobson, so he'll go back to the point. We've only had maybe about a half dozen drivers that have made a green flag pit stop here tonight. A couple of drivers just prior to the first caution hit pit road, short pitted, and then Peterson, we saw just moments ago, make a green flag pit stop. I mean, it's been almost 80 laps since we went green. A lot of our front runners, yeah, they might have tested making a pit stop under practice, but in race conditions, they haven't tested out just exactly what these cars are going to do, what happens underneath them when they slam on the brakes to get down to pit road speed. Is that going to be a hindrance for some of these guys?
I could see it. Again, I think it's only really time will tell and kind of circumstances will tell how kind of thrown off some of these guys get.
Just noticing Peterson here, I thought they were going to catch him. And they were going to pass him, and it's actually starting to pull away.
That's a single car speed. He's not even in draft.
Yeah, is that fresh tires right there?
I think it's a bit of fresh tires. And obviously, I think he's driving with a little bit of anger. Maybe a little bit of anger, just kind of fueling those lap times.
That's a motivation. That works.
Seeing Luis Gonzalez Nunez.
Yeah. Jumping out there on Hobson. One thing I noticed, and just to kind of explain it to people, back when Luis Gonzalez Nunez passed Jim Herrick for 3rd place, that was about 6-7 laps ago. Jim Herrick was actually letting Luis Gonzalez Nunez by, and he moved to driver's left, letting Nunez around the outside. People might be wondering, well, why didn't he give the 14 the shorter way around the racetrack? If you'll notice, these drivers, these cars, and really even with stock cars too, especially with the low bank into Indianapolis, you want to have that car swing wide on entry and then down to that white line. You want that arc into the corner. So what Herrick was actually doing was giving Luis Gonzalez Nunez the preferred entry lane into turn 1.
They're almost like a school bus, where the school bus has to swing out to make this turn, to make this really sharp turn. Kind of think of it like race cars, almost in that same fact, but instead of making a really wide turn, we're just trying to not hit the brakes as we go through a turn. That's effectively what we're trying to do.
And the other difference too is if you sit in the back of the car, it's probably not going to be nearly as fun a ride as it would be in the back of a bus. A once-in-a-lifetime experience, though. I've actually noticed Herrick mentioned that he let Luis Gonzalez Nunez by. Looks like he's continuing to do so with other drivers. AJ Hobson, Nick DeGroot have made their way around the 40. Now he's got Henry Bennett hounding him for that 5th position. Herrick right now appears to be pretty conservative. We got a big wreck! Who is that? That's Nunez! And now the caution's out.
I think it was just that kind of case of the car got a little bit unsettled, didn't hit his mark perfectly out of 4, and just got a little bit too high and tried to continue keeping that same pace, just smacked the wall. And the car just came right on around. And
didn't I just say Herrick looked like he was running conservatively? I even saw his car fishtail off of turn 4 there just when he was entering in the vicinity of Nunez, wrecking down that inside wall.
And that's why I say I think there's something different with either this car this season, or this setup this season, or just something about this track this season that just right now is making it extremely difficult on old tires. I mean, track temp has blistered up to 115 degrees. Still not the highest I've seen, but definitely not comfortable.
Hard impact for Luis Gonzalez Nunez.
Guy who's jumping up and down has to be Eric Peterson.
Has to be.
That's
He's
he gets to come
the
down.
Lucky dog.
Gets to come down, take an extra set of tires, make sure that car is already set. Or he can stay out.
14 of Nunez. Just helpless after you get the wall. Just have to go along for the ride. Steer the race car to try and avoid having it go back up into traffic.
At that point, you're a passenger. And as much as you hate to say it, Luis Gonzalez is a very talented driver. Just again, once you hit that wall, these cars just kind of go wherever, and he's on the brakes. You can tell exactly when he hit the brakes because the car straightens out, and effectively it's lost all traction. It's just going wherever it wants at this point.
Well, if you take a look at it, of our former winners this season, 2 drivers have had issues here today already, Forsyth and Nunez, and it kind of seems like it doesn't matter if you started at the front, middle, or rear of the field. A lot of drivers in different starting positions have had problems here today. As a matter of fact, the entirety of our front row now, positions 1, 2, and 3, have all had issues here today. Nunez, Forsyth, and Ashton Lawson.
I'd say it's Indy has taken no prisoners today.
It is not, and we've not even reached halfway in this race. It's obviously going to be a faster pair for Luis Gonzalez Nunez. Going to get to a point here where it's going to be very easy to read off the drivers that still have their faster pair intact, as we're getting very close to the single digits in that regard. I can tell you that your top 4, Rick Raybon, Nick DeGroot, Jim Herrick, and AJ Hobson, they all still have their faster pair. Craig Forsyth, who's going to restart in 5th, he is the highest running driver that has already used his mulligan at this point in time.
Oh, look at here. I'm starting to think that Eric Peterson may have missed a really good opportunity here. I mean, granted, it would have put him at quite a disadvantage, but I think he should have stayed out. Just to play track roulette,
well,
track strategy roulette.
You mentioned the fact it looked like when he came back on the track and he was pulling away from leader Rick Raybon, like he was driving with a purpose, had that motivation. I kind of wonder how much he was using up those tires in doing so.
I don't know. I mean, obviously it looks like he was going for it, but we haven't really gotten into that discussion of old tires versus new tires. But we can obviously tell there is a huge fall off.
Definitely, and really too, we've seen drivers having issues handling on the tires as soon as we go back green, and then later on in the run as those tires wear and the tire heat kicks in. So haven't really seen a happy medium. Looks like right there, Rick Ravon kind of shuffling the car back and forth, maybe trying to warm up the tires a little bit there. So maybe cold tires, a little slick going into the first couple of corners on these restarts perhaps. Maybe why we see them loose in the initial start, and then the rear grip goes away as the tires wear longer into a run. Now Jason Hand, we saw go around and get a lap back. He was 2 laps down when the caution came out, so with this wave around, he will now be the only car 1 lap down. Brandon Gates, I believe, also took the wave around, so he is -2. We've got 20 drivers on the racetrack, 18 on the lead lap with the addition of Eric Peterson getting the free pass, and we're back underway here on lap 84.
And look at Nick DeGroot. He kind of laid back on that restart. Almost timed it perfectly.
Lap 84, and first time today, Nick DeGroot is out in front. He's been close, but he is yet to lead so far here tonight in Indy.
Man, AJ Hobson, Rick Ravon is just getting kind of swallowed up on this restart. He's going to have to kind of risk it if he wants to pull out, and unfortunately, AJ Hobson kind of locked him out of that.
I'm telling you right now, if we have a late race restart, you do not want the 63 anywhere inside of the top 3, because he has been the best on restarts so far.
I will say, I've seen what Rick Ravon's been able to do under pressure, and again, that's not someone I really want to fight for a win if it came down to it.
Continue to talk about drivers that are having great performances here tonight, some underdog stories, and can't help but continue to notice the 69 of Glenn Lassonde. He is still up here inside of the top 10. Has been the entirety of this race, currently running in P6. Got his hands full with Charles Teed and Gary Corley behind him.
I said the little engine that could, but realistically, he has just been kind of clawing his way up here. And I don't know if it's maybe Indy or maybe his car, but just something has worked for him today.
Something has definitely clicked as now Corley looks to the inside of Charles Teed. You got a couple of other drivers just inside and just outside of the top 10 as well. James Watson, first start he's made this season. We've seen him race in seasons past. He's currently up in the 9th spot. Frankie Franchicha, he's currently in the 10th position. Charles Johnson up there in 11th. So, you know, we're looking at these guys up here like Ravon and Nick DeGroot, who have won this race before. Charles Teed added into that list as well. But don't count out some of these drivers that have limited starts or maybe making their debut here tonight in the Dark Horse Racing Series.
I do love to see Jim Herrick up here. I mean, he's, again, one of those guys that you normally, you kind of love to see, feel-good story, but normally doesn't get the kind of runs that he normally should. One of those guys who really is just kind of punching up today and really making it work.
We've got, right now, 18 drivers on the lead lap, and unscheduled stop for the 00 of Jason Hand, who had just gotten a wave around. He is now back down on pit road and will more than likely lose at least 1 lap, maybe 2. I wonder if maybe he got up into the wall or something and is having to come down pit road for damage repair.
Whatever it is, he obviously does not feel it's right with that car. He decided to come down. I'm seeing, looks like Craig Forsythe may be on the move here.
He is indeed. Just got around Jim Herrick for the 4th position. And for the 2nd time today as well, noticed a little bit of cloud cover here at Indianapolis. So we had cloud cover back around between laps 50 to 60. And now the sun peeks its way out again. So I'm not necessarily certain just how much of a factor that cloud cover really is having, since it's rather sporadic and it doesn't last for a long period of time.
I mean, obviously, it does take a minute to cool down the track. It's not going to be instant as soon as the cloud pops over. But any relief from the sun obviously makes the track just feel a little bit better. Obviously, it makes the cars just feel a little bit better. Just not having the sun beating down on it, not having a hot track, really to have to worry about. I don't know the real effect it's having on these cars. I just haven't driven one of these.
Jason Hand's going to the garage area, and Brandon Gates in 76 is back on pit road as we're riding on board with Craig Forsythe. We're going to let this shot take us to our next FRN race break. You're not going to miss a thing because we're going to take you FRN side by side here for the Dark Horse 500. Caution out for the 6th time here tonight at Indianapolis. It was a battle for 7th place gone wrong. Charles Teed got the worst end of it.
It looks like Charles Teed is done. I mean, obviously fast repair down on the hole, but at least driving out of that incident does not seem like the rear end was at least in proper position. Just looks like a little bit of an intense battle. Just like you said, went a little bit wrong. A little bit of gap black played into it very clearly. And Charles Teed, not the first interaction they've had today, but just ended up bopping the rear end of the car, just kind of stepping out and ended up backing it into the fence. But by backing into the fence, just ended up offsetting that axle just a little bit where it just was not drivable.
Yeah, you mentioned about not the first time the two had made contact today. They were involved in that first caution when they got together avoiding Matt Wagner off turn 4 onto the front straightaway. And these two had been in a very spirited battle side by side for the last 2 or 3 laps. So it wasn't as if this battle had just culminated. These guys mixed it up pretty good for that spot inside the top 10.
Absolutely, and I've seen a lot of these guys on pit road almost cause a stack up on the side. Rick Raybon kind of getting flashbacks to previous seasons of all 3 of these guys.
When it's an endurance race like this, and we've heard this from the drivers in seasons past, they kind of do the math as far as pit strategy from back to front. But the fact we've had 6 cautions here in the first half of this race, how much do you think this is affecting their calculations, or is it affecting it at all? Do they basically now just kind of throw the calculator out, get a new calculator for the final 100 laps?
It's one of those times where you kind of have to kind of play it by ear, where yes, you have a preset strategy coming in, but you're kind of just working with what you got. I mean, hey, you take your cautions where you can get them. But Dylan McIntosh, if he doesn't pit, that may be a huge move.
Right now he is being scored as the leader. Maybe just getting himself a lap led here and might come to pit lane. He's got 12 laps on his Firestones. And I noticed AJ Hobson said, not this time, Rick Raybon. He actually won the battle off pit road. Raybon came out second, DeGroot in third, Forsyth in fourth. They would be the top 5 behind McIntosh if McIntosh does intend to stay out and lead us back green. The pace laps don't take very long here. I think we only have 2 pace laps. 1 lap for the lead lap cars come down pit road, 1 lap for the lap down cars, and then the lights go out for the 1 to green signal. So look at the indicator here. Yep, McIntosh is going to come to pit lane, so that'll turn the race lead back over to driver 63. So getting a lap lead bonus point perhaps here for the final season standings. Maybe getting that 1 extra lap of fuel. Don't know how much of a factor that's going to be, since there's still quite a ways to go in this race, but you never know.
I said, you just never know.
So with this caution, I believe that there was nobody a lap down. I think all the lap down cars at the time had gone back to the garage area prior to that caution. Brandon Gates and Jason Hand. So Hand will be credited for 20th, Brandon Gates 19th, and then, as you alluded to, Charles Teed, his night is over. Second incident he was involved in had already used his faster pair, so he will finish in 18th place here tonight. 28 drivers took the green flag. We are now down to 17 drivers remaining, all on the lead lap right now. And I'll take the opportunity here to run down the list of the drivers who still have that faster pair, still have that mulligan, more than I expected, surprisingly. So the drivers right now that still have the faster pair available to them would include AJ Hobson, Rick Ravon, Nick DeGroot, Jim Herrick, Glenn Lazon, Charles Johnson, Henry Bennett, Frankie Francica, Jeff Hysong, Dylan Moskowitz, and Joe McAdoo. So those are the drivers right now that are certainly hoping that they're not going to be a caution and have to take on that faster pair, especially if things get really crazy in the closing stages.
Well, I said it all kind of depends on if it gets crazy.
We go back green here with the pace car peeling off. This will be the start of lap 95. Which means we'll be 5 laps away from halfway in tonight's race. AJ Hobson, another good jump there, about 3.5 car lengths back to Rick Ravon, then another car length and a half back to Nick DeGroot. Maybe one of the most spread out restarts we've seen all night long, especially amongst the top 6 or 7.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a little bit of a lull or honestly, they're just kind of trying to get to the end of this race so they can really start kind of sinking their teeth into this and fighting.
Watson making a move on Gary Corley, putting him up to P7. Corley looked like he got a little wide off of turn 2, had to bail out of the throttle, feather it, and lost a bunch of momentum. He'll now tuck in line in the 8th position. Luis Gonzalez Nunez back there in the 14, making a move, and there's Henry Bennett in the 007. I did notice, I think it was 2 restarts ago, Henry Bennett started back in the 22nd position. He was the last car on the lead lap. I don't know if he went a little off sequence, topped off the fuel tank on the second lap of caution, or what it was, but it's the furthest back he's run all night long, now trying to work his way back to the front.
Still has plenty of time to do it.
Now catching that battle that's still going on for 7th between Corley and Watson that's up at the front. It's like the closer battle is for 2nd than it is for the race lead. Nick DeGroot very close to the rear wing of Rick Ravon. Now kind of a bit of a bubble push there. Propels the one into turn 1. He closed up on AJ Hobson, but was very high there. About a half groove higher than what most drivers are running through that corner. Is he searching for clean air through that corner, or is he trying to see if there's a run off of 2 that will give him momentum down the back straightaway?
I think he's really just testing to see if it could be a run that he can take somewhere where, obviously he's testing where we're dropping back, getting a good run off the corner, and seeing if we can take that huge run and pass, because, oh my!
Oh, wow! Big
Rick
save.
Ravon.
Oh, and look out. Greg Forsythe making a move to the outside there of Rick Ravon.
And all it takes is a little lapse in judgment. And that's pretty much just got swallowed up.
I mean, talk about the reflexes of these guys. It's cat-like.
I mean, you have to be on your toes all the time. And Nick DeGroot, Rick Ravon, and Craig Forsythe are some of the best in the business to do it here. So,
I mean, you think about the fact that we have the longer runs and drivers kind of settle in. At the same time, as you just mentioned, you've got to continuously be on high alert. So we talk about the fact that this is an endurance race and can wear down on you physically and mentally, but when you consider all the different facets of how you have to approach this race, the high speeds that are carried, the close proximity, the reaction time you have to have, you can just say it's a mentally draining race, but when you really consider all the facets, it kind of is just a tip of the iceberg to just say it's mentally draining. Until you experience it, you don't really know just how much these drivers have to keep their focus, how much the adrenaline might still be pumping, and how much they might want to crash after the race is over.
that's the thing. Now, I don't think we fully mentioned this earlier in the race, but effectively it's all but certain that Craig Forsythe is clinching this title, just because there currently is 17 cars on the racetrack. Where even if worst possible finish for Craig Forsyth right now is P17 if he were to wreck out. So realistically, there's nothing that Jeff Isong or Luis Gonzalez, maybe it's a huge long set. But there's nothing that they can really do here.
Congratulations to Craig Forsyth after he led a lap in the early going, locked up that championship. Going over his stats in a little bit, it's definitely championship caliber. And you think about how this has all kind of come full circle. First season that we broadcast the Dark Horse Racing Series, Season 2, Craig Forsyth was the winner of this event. Was running on a part-time schedule, couldn't run the entire season. You fast forward now to Season 6, run the full-time schedule, and he's the Dark Horse champion for the 6th season, and might be able to get the Dark Horse 500, second of his career, and the championship all in one night. But I was just quickly looking over the statistics of the guy out in front, AJ Hobson. Don't sleep on this guy, because in the past 4 Dark Horse 500s, he has 3 finishes inside of the top 10, 2 finishes inside of the top 5, a 4th back in Season 2, and a runner-up finish to Rick Rabon last season.
You're giving him momentum.
I am. He's got the numbers. He's good here at Indy, and he wants that one position better that he came up short at last year.
And just the thing of, I mean, obviously, to win a championship is one thing, but hey, to win the Indy 500 on top of that, that's a whole nother.
Boy, I thought that was almost a near spin for the race leader in the 63. Got those left sides down below that white line and was really loose. Talk about momentum, even something like that, where you get just a little squirrely, those rear tires start moving, the speed scrubs off, and somebody behind you, in this case Nick DeGroot, can very easily close up and maybe utilize the draft to be able to swing around you. You've got to be picture perfect through these corners, or else they're going to jump all over you.
I mean, like we saw with Rick Rabon, just mess up that one little corner and you fell back 2 spots and having to fight back to get them all back.
Rabon and Forsyth exchange 3rd place. I think Forsyth might have actually let Rick on by there. Looked like he was indicating for Rick to pass him. Now he'll tuck in line behind the 1. Jim Harrigan, Henry Bennett back there in the 5th and 6th position. So all of a sudden our top 6 have kind of broken into a trio of 2-car tandems. So as I say that, Nick DeGroot's lost touch with AJ Hobson.
Seeing that, where looks like AJ Hobson's going to turn on the Jets here at the moment.
17 drivers, all running, all on the lead lap at this point in time, as we have now crossed into the second half of this race. We are yet to really know what a full fuel run is for these drivers. We had projected 35 to 40 laps, but we weren't able to quite reach that pinnacle back during the first round of green flag pit stops. Had a couple of drivers come to pit lane but did not have the entire full cycle with the entire field. Right now, we would be roughly about a third of the way through a fuel run if our numbers are correct. And it looks like these drivers may be settling themselves into a long green flag run. The only issue is, though, in this particular race, and you've documented on it already, a number of the cautions we've had have been drivers getting loose by themselves. It hasn't necessarily been drivers racing in close proximity and wrecking due to contact. So you can't necessarily be absolutely certain that what looks relatively tame right now isn't going to have one of our front runners snap loose and maybe bring out a yellow flag.
Man, I just saw Frankie and Gary Corley just almost took off the front nose of the 7. Let's say some of these drivers getting a little bit dicey.
I saw him back here in this mix as well. So look at the inside of Gary Corley. We saw Corley and T. They've been in some good battles tonight. It kind of seems like the same for Jeff Hysong and Gary Corley. They can't seem to be able to get away from each other. You got Luis Gonzalez Nunez and Eric Peterson there as well. And I think for the 14 and the 36, yes, they obviously lost out on some track position with the issues they've had tonight, but we haven't really seen them charge back up to the front. And I think that's by design. I think that since they don't have the mulligan to fall back on now, They're kind of in wide mode. We'll probably see them up towards the front near the end of this race, but for right now, they're just preserving their equipment.
And honestly, that's a smart move how some of this race has turned out. But obviously, it's putting yourself, A, in a good position not to be in any wrecks, but also, B, making sure you're in a good position to have a shot at the end of the race. Because, yeah, you can ride around in 10th, 15th, but if I'm not, within about second or two of the leaders, that's going to put me at a huge disadvantage later in the race.
One thing that has not been an advantage so far here tonight was starting track position at the initial start of this race. As our top 10 run right now, only 4 drivers started this race up inside of the top 10, and 3 drivers inside our top 10 didn't even start inside of the top 15. So a number of drivers have taken advantage of the early cautions, the torn up race cars, and are currently running up inside of the top 10, looking at the 8 of Charles Johnson there, the 8 car running in P8.
Just kind of taking a look here. We've got some drivers coming to an end of their first season up here in the Dark Horse IndyCar Series, Dark Horse Racing Series. The biggest being, obviously, Joseph Morales did wreck out a little bit earlier in the race. But obviously, this has kind of been a learning season for him where he has had some very good flashes of moments. Where it's one of those guys I can see as this next season progresses, building off of his foundation and slowly becoming faster. Same thing with Jeff Hysong, where Hysong has really stepped up his game this year and has been a threat week in and week out. Honestly, I think as soon as he gets that first win, it is just a kind of a light switch. I think he'll just light up the track afterwards. Same thing with Luis Gonzalez Nunez. I mean, he's got the speed, but the consistency is what's lacking, where he's not afraid to push the limits, but sometimes pushing the limits is not always what he needs.
And we've seen the schedule change from season to season. We saw a pretty good mixture of road courses and speedways in the last couple of seasons. This year, however, it was strictly speedways. There were no road courses on the schedule. And Glenn Lazan, we saw him make this last couple of starts, and they were at relatively smaller tracks. We didn't see him at Auto Club. We didn't see him at Michigan, but with the performance he's putting on here at a bigger racetrack with high speed, currently running in 7th, I kind of feel like if we end up having another highly speedway-oriented schedule next season, he'd be a driver to kind of watch as well.
Absolutely, and I don't know if we're going to get any road courses introduced back in the next season, which, I mean, obviously right now it's kind of early stages of planning. I don't know if any road courses are going to come back. I know some drivers who are liking it. Ooh, Luis Gonzalez Nunez may have caught the fence just a little bit there. Don't think any damage on the right side, but definitely not a guy who's ready to push limits.
Thought I saw some smoke in turn 1, and indeed Dylan McIntosh went around and hit the inside wall by his lonesome. You see it here with the replay. Big hit there for the driver in the 0-4, and more than likely that is going to be day done for him.
Again, just kind of a huge hit where he'd been keeping his nose clean. Again, P17 is not very bad on one of your attempts, but obviously you want to improve every season. It looks like Eric Peterson and I'm not sure who else that was.
Charles Johnson.
Pit road. Ooh.
Interesting call here. We're only 20 laps into the stint, but again, too, mention the fact that these cautions have really played havoc with the fuel numbers for these guys, so maybe this pit stop puts them back on track with what they had as far as their strategy at the initial start of this race.
Alternatively, you could try and work the race backwards and try to put yourself in a better scenario where you're doing your short stint now and then your long stint later. But again, we're a little bit too early into the run to really see this play out.
Might have been a tiny bit of contact there. Front wing of A.J. Hobson to the back of Henry Bennett as these two very closely contesting that 4th position. So Johnson and Peterson did lose a lap with their pit stop. They are now going to hope that this thing cycles around. I don't know, though. 2 cars. They going to be, well, here comes Bennett to pit road, and he's going to come all by his lonesome. I mean, are 2 cars going to be able to produce enough speed to get them back up to, if not improve the position they were running in prior to that pit stop?
I don't think improving, but I think possibly maintaining. But the big question is, obviously, is this going to A, force everyone else to pit road, and B, how strong is the undercut at Indianapolis, where we've seen numerous times this season that undercut has been extremely strong. I'm just not sure about here.
yet to see a complete cycle of green flag pit stops, and a number of these drivers you're looking at right now, Rick Raybon, Nick DeGroot, Craig Forsyth, your top three, they've yet to make a pit stop under green flag conditions. Here's Hobson onto pit road. Jim Herrick going to come down with him. Glenn Lazan and James Watson also in this lap. That was, I believe, also the first green flag pit stop of the day for Henry Bennett.
So a lot of these guys are having their first.
For a second.
It's kind of surprising to say, but a lot of these guys are having their first green flag pit stops.
They are. I think for a good portion of the drivers that had come to pit road under green flag conditions in the early portion of this race, most of them are back in the garage area right now.
That's kind of the surprising thing. A lot of drivers that we actually had really high hopes of earlier in this race. I mean, Ashton Lawson kind of coming out of left field in the P3 start. Matt Wagner, who we just know who is so strong in this car. Same thing with Charles Teed. Again, always great speed, bad luck. And Eric Peterson, he was one of those guys who were fighting up near the front and just kind of bad situations. It went worse.
You know, when you consider the fact, too, Charles Teed, Matt Wagner, drivers that we've seen season after season. Obviously, there's going to be a bit of an off-season before Season 7 starts up, but can you take any momentum from a good finish here in this Indianapolis race in preparation for the next season opener?
Obviously, yes. I mean, just kind of, if you're one of those guys who are maybe just riding around, like I said, maybe if you're Gary Corley or if you're Glenn Bazan or James Watson, even Charles Johnson, kind of take a little bit of ideas from some of the guys up in the front. I mean, watch how Rick Raybon's running this race. Watch his lines. Watch what he's doing to race this car. Obviously, he's doing it well if he's up front. But watch what he's doing. Watch his strategies. Kind of trying to think of his mindset. Or you can just go ask the guy. I'm sure that Raybon will tell you. At least try to help you a little bit. Same thing with Forsyth. Same thing with DeGroot. I mean, asking these guys, they will teach you. But I highly suggest if you're some guy sub 10 or 10th place right now, you make the movements and just watch the replay a little bit. Watch how these guys drive and try to match some of their lines. And obviously, once you match some of their lines, try to edit it to where you feel comfortable, but still kind of maintaining that same pace.
Dylan Moskowitz on pit lane in the 4. We saw the lap prior. Jeff Heisong and Luis Gonzalez Nunez, who appear they will finish out the season inside the top 5 in overall standings. They were on pit lane. We're focused on the 39 of James Watson because right now he is the highest running driver that has been to pit lane. Just kind of get an idea of the difference of grip and speed between fresh tires as opposed to old tires. He blew the doors off of Craig Forsyth when he caught him. He's trying to get up there to Glenn Lazan, the 69 car. There you see Charles Johnson in the 8, another driver that's already been to pit road, making his way around the 27. So it certainly looks like there is a speed advantage. I don't know if it's grip, I don't know if it's tire temperatures, but there's definitely something there as far as fresh tires, something to kind of squirrel away if we end up having some late race restarts.
I think it's a little bit of grip, but also a lot of tire temperature. Obviously, with a track temp being 114, you leaning on that right front every single corner with the limited banking on Indianapolis, like I said, I think you're really going to need all of that grip possible. So any bit of extra grip or any bit of tire temp that you can kind of shave off, definitely kind of your advantage and friend.
Forward with Forsyth you saw there as he was making his way down to his pit stall. We're still waiting for 4 drivers to make their pit stop. Rick Raybon, Nick DeGroot, Frankie Franchicha, and Joe McAdory. Raybon's going to stay out yet another lap. DeGroot's coming in this time, it looked like. Oh, yep, he is. It looked like his telemetry was slowing, and indeed he is going to hit the pit lane for the first time under green flag conditions today.
Notice that some of these lap times, at least some of the leaders, are really slowing down. Rick Raybon ran a 41.5 the previous lap, but I'm seeing some of the guys who actually came out and pitted running about 40.6s. So, kind of gets you thinking, like, about a second faster a lap even without draft.
You know what else is interesting? James Watson right now But that pass on Rick Raybon was going to put himself on the tail end of the lead lap. Same for the 8 of Charles Johnson. Now, if you're running with the leader just prior to him making a pit stop, does that mean we're going to see the 39 with Rick Raybon, Nick DeGroot and company once this whole thing cycles around?
I want to say yes, but I keep thinking that undercuts the right strategy here, where pitting earlier, at least in my mind, is the correct strategy.
Henry Bennett might be the one that inherits the race lead, as he just went by Rick Raybon. The 98 of Frankie Franchicha is actually the race leader, stayed out an extra lap. Going to be the last driver to complete this cycle of pit stops. But it looks like it is going to be Henry Bennett who will inherit the lead. AJ Hobson will be second, Jim Herrick third, and then Rick Raybon is going to cycle around in the 4th position. Granted, he'll have about 7 lap fresher tires than the top 3 ahead of him, but he's also not going to have the track position he had prior to when the pit stops began.
It just kind of keeps a little bit of that back of your mind, where it's like track position. Track position's key at a place like Indianapolis, especially when this field gets so spread out. Yes, draft helps, but again, just being further ahead on track, even if, let's say, maybe you don't have someone in front of you, but they're providing a little bit of tow, or someone that's behind you that's kind of pushing you forward, just having that track advantage, being out of traffic in general, is going to help you here.
What has happened to Eric Peterson? Oh, is there damage? Oh, that looks like that left front's facing the wrong way. I think he's gotten into the wall somewhere.
And just looking back at this here, looks like he was coming the pit road. Actually, no, it looks like he had a little bit of contact out of turn 4. Kind of aimed towards the inside wall, tried to keep it off the wall, and just popped it just a little bit. Came on the pit road just to repair it, but I think he is pretty much done for today.
He is one of the drivers that had already used his faster pair, as Henry Bennett now does indeed inherit the lead. We'll go back and see if we can catch what happened to Eric Peterson on our replay. Tough break there. That driver's been fighting all day long. Peterson had an early incident, didn't bring out a caution, came down, took on the faster pair, got a lucky dog to be able to get back on the lead lap. He's running up inside of the top 10 when the green flag pit stop cycle began. Looked like he was going to more than likely cycle around to 10th or 11th place. Now it's like his day has come to an early end.
I give him props for trying, but just, again, at a certain point, that car just really becomes untenable as soon as you get contact and damage.
Peterson has not officially retired from the race, but if he does, he will be scored in 16th place. That'll leave us with 15 drivers left. I mean, you mentioned the fact that in the past Dark Horse 500s, we've pretty much had around half the field that started the race, finished the race under power. We're pretty close to that number. 28 drivers started this race, and if Peterson is out, we'll be 1 driver shy from only half the field remaining in tonight's event, and there's still 75 laps to go.
I told you, we're just biting the dust.
So Bennett's got a commanding lead right now, over 3 seconds back to AJ Hobson. Jim Herrick is currently about 5 seconds behind the race leader. Then you've got a tandem of Rick Raybon and Craig Forsyth, and to be honest, I'm a little surprised that they haven't made up any ground. I thought that by now they would have gotten up there to Jim Herrick to bypass him for 3rd and 4th, but it doesn't appear to be the case. So, is this a scenario of them maybe not pushing it as hard as we would expect them to, because they're trying to maybe save a little bit of fuel to stretch it to their next fuel number?
I could see that, where you're trying to eliminate a pit stop, or at least make your life just a little bit easier here for the ending.
It's 4 laps down. They're still trying to repair that race car. Joe McAdory did lose a lap. Oh, wow. Henry Bennett, you saw right there, get loose off of turn 4. That's the race leader. Oh, and then Jim Herrick does as well in the 3rd position. We may not be done with cautions here. We've seen it before. A lot of drivers up in the front have looped it around, had heavy contact with the wall.
It's really just
dropping the 4th spot now because of that slide.
I think I've identified just a little bit of how this really happens. It's most likely the newer tires that are a little bit colder, or older tires that maybe just had a little bit of laps just put on them. Oh, Henry Bennett! Almost wrecked. He's wrecking. He almost wrecked it. He didn't wreck it.
He's coming to pit road.
But realistically, it's either these older tires or the brand new tires that are just starting out. But it's the aggressive line that they're running where I mentioned in seasons past, they haven't really ran underneath that white line because the car has been historically very aggressive, and honestly it turns around when as soon as you put your tires underneath it, unlike other cars on iRacing. However, I've noticed this season a lot of drivers have been a lot more aggressive, and they've been putting their cars down below that white line almost all the way to the drainage ditch, which I haven't seen in years past. But I think it's the car's setup or the track that's really allowing them to do that. However, when the tires get worn or they're brand new, it almost reverts back to that same state where it's extremely sensitive underneath that white line where it just kind of catches some of these drivers out.
How about that slide and that save from Henry Bennett? You saw it there on board with him, loose off of turn 3, drifted it all the way on that access road through turn 4. Not hit the wall, either the inside or the outside, but he has come to pit lane. He has taken on a fresh set of tires, returns to the track still on the lead lap, and now back in the 14th position. And he's not the only driver up inside the top 5 that's had a moment off before. You just saw right there a loose sensation for now new race leader AJ Hobson. We saw Jim Herrick have a moment, and I think Len Lazan actually got a little loose off before a couple of laps ago as well, right in front of Nick DeGroot.
Well, obviously, it kind of puts a fresh perspective on things. Obviously, you have to be a little bit more careful, and it does make tires not really an option later on in the race.
I mean, think about this. If the cars are handling like this now, with 70 laps to go, these drivers have to be in some capacity racing just a little bit timid, a little bit scared that their car's going to snap off a Ford. What's that going to do to their mentality with a checkered flag on the line if they're able to make a move? I mean, they're going to be second-guessing themselves of, if I make this move, is the car going to stay underneath me or not?
Well, in my mind, this only makes me edit my strategy a little bit. Because obviously you have the guys who are going for the least possible pit stops, and then if you can't get the least possible pit stops, try to make sure your last run is the one that has the least amount of laps on it. My take in this is instead of going for the strategy.
Oh, we got a wreck coming to pit road. Sorry to cut you off. Charles Johnson just spun it onto pit lane. Hard contact for the 8.
They're just dropping like flies.
No caution. Let's go back and see what happened to him.
Really just kind of missed the same mistake we've been seeing all day.
I believe he was running in the 8th position, if I'm not mistaken.
Just gets his tires underneath that line and just it unsettles the rear end, and the rear end, it's so subtle how it steps out until you get out of the corner, and then it finally fully steps out.
Wow, that is hard impact there for Charles Johnson. He does have a faster pair still. That thing was still under power as he crabs his way down to his stall.
He parked it. He's done.
Boy, a lot of drivers hopefuls of getting a good finish here today. Many of them making their first start overall in the Dark Horse Racing Series. Charles Johnson was one of them. And he's going to be scored in 15th right now. Got another car, a couple cars on pit road. Nick DeGroot has hit pit lane in the 89, and Gary Corley was just on pit lane as well. This is about 17 laps into the run for Nick DeGroot and Gary Corley. Scheduled pit stops? I don't know.
See, that's what I don't know, but...
Seems like it could be, but I'm not certain.
So it could be one of a couple things. It could be running the race backwards, as we talked about before, where they're trying to short pit now to make their long stints at the end. Or it could just be an alternative strategy where, again, they see how this car is on old tires. Maybe it's worth it to try and make equal stints, so hey, we never really truly get to that old tire state.
Well, I'm almost
AJ Hobson, that car just steps out every opportunity.
I'm wondering in the case of Nick DeGroot if maybe he might have gotten into the wall at some point, because when he came down pit road, he took his faster pair. Don't know necessarily what drew Corley to pit road, but I have a feeling a damage repair call was what had Nick DeGroot on pit lane.
Looks
and now
like
we got Hobson on pit road.
Yeah, Hobson was almost spinning out the last few laps, but looking at the group, looks like he actually ended up getting the damage as he was trying to pass Glenn Lazon. And it wasn't really Glenn's any fault of Glenn's, but DeGroot tried to basically send it, making sure he oversends the corner and then tries to kind of gather it back up on middle. But the tires are so worn where he's been kind of battling that the last few laps and has dropped a considerable distance.
So now with DeGroot hitting pit lane, Hobson hitting pit lane, it now brings a very familiar sight there on your screen. Rick Rabon the leader and Craig Forsyth in the second position. Craig's been to victory lane 4 times this season. Rick Rabon's been to victory lane 3. The only other 2 drivers that have been to victory lane previously this season, Nunez with his 4th victory last week at Motegi, and then Eric Schaus had that win about midway portion of the season. So only 4 drivers have been able to find victory lane here this year, and right now 2 of the former winners are up here at the front.
Obviously, I've seen a lot of guys getting real tail happy out of the exit of these corners, but kind of seeing, obviously we've got our two noticeable faces up here, has to be Ravon and Forsyth, but then dropping down a little bit lower, we got Glenn Lazon having a great day, ended up driving up to P3, got P3 out of that last pit stop from Jim Herrick, now coming down the pit road. James Watson really kind of recovering from that early kind of misfortune, a little bit of damage, but kind of still riding around in a very good position. Jeff Heisong, he's now on pit road too. Kind of, again, one of those guys who just stealthily keeps moving on up.
So, Heisong Lazan on pit road, Herrick leaving pit road. So we are getting into another cycle of green flag pit stops. And one thing too that I didn't bring up was when we had the potential projected fuel window for these drivers of 35 to 40 laps, that was when they were all running in a pack. We know that at speedways, especially at a big track like Indianapolis, if you're running all by yourself, that fuel number is going to decrease and decrease significantly. So it's very likely that some of these drivers now, they can only, in single car runs, they can only go maybe about 25 to 30 laps.
See, this is where my kind of knowledge of strategy drops off a little bit.
This is where you wish you were a fly on the wall of a pit box or something.
Yeah, this is the part where I just kind of shut up and I drive the car. It's kind of not thinking of the strategy, but got to think, these guys have to do it all on the fly. Where it's, hey, a caution comes out, I have to rearrange my entire strategy for the next however many laps. Yeah, this is kind of the things I think about while I'm just kind of twiddling my thumbs, so...
Rick Rabon continues to show the way here at Indianapolis. Next time by, we will be at 60 laps to go here in the Dark Horse 500. The last 2 times we've gone to an FRN race break, a caution has come out. Hopefully we're not tempting fate and going 3 for 3, but we are going to step aside and take a quick little break here. You're not going to miss the action. If the leaders pit, you'll see it, courtesy of our FRN side-by-side. Service complete on the pole sitter, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, as he returns back to the racetrack here. The continuation of the Dark Horse 500 for the Dark Horse Racing Series, presented by Troy Lee Designs. We're almost into the final leg of this race, nearing 50 laps to go as Rick Raybon continues to show the way. Your top 4 are yet to come to pit lane to complete what has now been our second cycle of green flag pit stops. We got Raybon, Forsyth, Bennett, and Hobson that are yet to come to pit lane, as James Watson and Frankie Franchicha are now on pit road. One thing that we were seeing with that FRN side-by-side there, Matt, we were watching Dylan Moskowitz when he was finishing up his pit stop, and we put so much emphasis on the entry to pit lane, getting that thing woed down to pit road speed, as now Rick Raybon ducks onto pit lane, but, you know, kind of take for granted that pit road has an entrance and an exit, that very flat exit road leaving pit lane, and you could see we were on board with Moskowitz, the hand motion, trying to make sure that those rear tires stayed underneath him. We've seen pit road exit play its part into taking drivers out of conversation for wins this season already. Eric Schaus, Eric Peterson, and the current race leader Craig Forsyth, they've all been victims of pit road exit spins.
Extremely, and you got to remember, it's kind of the most time can be gained and lost by the entry and exit to pit road. However, again, pit road entry or pit road exit can make or break your entire race. Where, hey, if you're someone like Rick Raybon, hey, you've been quick on and off the racetrack, but again, you spin on the exit of pit road, you basically just kind of giving away your lead.
Mentioned about the fact that Craig Forsyth, he has had a championship season statistically. He got the championship locked up when he led a lap here tonight. Came into this race with a 102-point lead over Jeff Heisong. You look at the numbers, he has finished no worse than 5th place outside of the season opener at Pocono, where he DNF'd in the 16th position. His worst finish was a 5th place, and outside of that, every other finish, including 4 trips. Oh no, he just wrecked out of pit road! Oh gosh, Craig Forsyth, who I don't know if he was planning on pitting that lap or not, just looped it around to the inside wall. There was nobody in the vicinity, so no caution going to come out. I was going to mention, every other finish outside of the 5th and the 16th were all podium finishes.
Yeah, I'd say I think he was actually trying to come to pit road, just got a little bit too low, and when he hopped on the brakes, the rear end just decided just to lock up just a little bit, and there she went.
My reaction, even though our camera was focused, was I was looking at my other screen, reading off the statistics. I look up and see the smoke, and it was Craig Forsyth looping around in turn 4. Here's another look at the replay. And again, you've talked about this, and it was the same scenario there. Those left sides down below that white line. It's like there's not enough grip for that left rear to be able to hang on to on corner exit.
What I realistically think is, again, this track condition or this setup.
Oh, and now Henry Bennett's going to bid it into the wall off of 4. And he was the race leader. What is
yellow flag?
Out with oncoming traffic, but what is going on? That's back-to-back leaders wrecking off of 4 in the last 3 laps.
Well, I said, here's my piece where I really think that just the track condition has kind of allowed these drivers to aggressively attack those corners where going below the white line in these cars usually resulted in death, where at least this setup or this track condition today has allowed them to actively go below it and use it for extra speed. But as soon as the tires get worn, it reverts back to that same state where, I mean, it just takes out these cars, and realistically, these drivers just haven't adjusted to that.
I want to go back to turn 3. This is Joe McAdory that Henry Bennett is trying to get around. And it almost kind of looks like he has to adjust his line through turn 3, gets loose there. And I'm wondering if that was kind of the start of all of it for Henry Bennett, who then has that very shallow entry into turn 4, looping the thing around.
Man.
Bennett had not used his faster pair. He's going to still be okay and still be in the running. Craig Forsyth, though, who wrecked the lap or 2 prior, he had already used his faster pair very early on after he and Ashton Lawson got together in the middle of 3 and 4. He is done for the day. So this is going to be, in a championship season, only the second finish for Craig Forsyth outside of the top 5.
But you got to think here. Now this kind of opens up everything. Everyone's back together. We're really in the last dash of the race. This isn't. I don't think this is going to be the final pit stop. I think there's going to be one more pit stop. So
at least.
So this kind of puts you in an interesting scenario where you have to go out, gain the lead, not wreck coming to pit road, because apparently that is a prerequisite here. Not wreck coming to pit road, and still come out and being able to maintain your lead.
We're now down to 13 drivers that are left in the running. Henry Bennett was unable to make his way to his pit stall under power, so he has lost a lap as a result. He just took the faster pair, is now coming back onto the racetrack, but he will be 1 lap down, so he needs another caution to be able to get back into the hunt. 12 drivers will be on the lead lap when we go back green. Rick Ravon won the battle off pit road. AJ Hobson there in second, Jim Herrick third, then Nick DeGroot and Jeff Heisong going to be the completion of the top 5. And at 63, talked about the fact that he seems to always be the best on restarts. Be interesting to see what he does with Rick Ravon here, as we're going to be less than 50 to go. So you talk about that pit stop. It's still looming. At least one more trip to pit road for these drivers. So with that being said, is this go time now, or do you maybe wait and see what happens after that pit stop cycle is completed?
If I was Rick Ravon, I would more or less kind of wait and see this. Where I know AJ Hobson's probably going to be going off from the get-go, but realistically, if I kind of play my cards right, hang with him, maybe save my tires just a little bit, maybe I can go a little bit longer and I can make my last stint maybe a little bit fresher tires, and hopefully I can go a little bit harder than AJ Hobson can. If I'm back there like Jim Herrick, Nick DeGroot, Jeff Heisong, realistically, you need to go. This is go time for you. Nick DeGroot in particular was given basically a, hey, here's something to get you right back in the race. Because realistically, he should not be in the race for this win right now. So he's basically got the get out of jail free card. He is back in this race. You need to go. This is your time. And same thing with Luis Gonzalez Nunez, James Watson. I mean, a lot of these guys in the back, they need to go.
Of the 13 drivers still running, more than half of them still have their faster pair. Ravon, Hobson, Herrick, the top 3. Jeff Heisong, Glenn Lazan back in 5th and 6th. And then Dylan Moskowitz and Joe McAdory in 10th and 11th. You kind of consider that wreck there for Henry Bennett. That was a blessing in disguise for Joe McAdory, because if Bennett had gotten around him, that would have put him a lap down. Granted, he would have been in the free pass position, but then when Bennett, the inside wall, McAdory was ahead of him, didn't have to rely on the free pass, still on the lead lap, and will restart in the 11th spot.
I just noticed everyone's stacking up there in the back, and I can tell this restart. I don't know if we'll stay green for long.
I feel like this is, for a broadcaster, it's the mentality of a super speedway race. It's so unpredictable. It's sit back and see what happens until like the final 5 laps, then kind of try and unravel it all. Green flag back in the air, less than 50 laps to go. A little wheel spin there by Gary Corley as James Watson looks to take advantage of that. Hobson, as mentioned, has been very good on the restarts. Let's see what he can do here through 1 and 2 and on the back straightaway. He likes to pounce into turn 3.
Kind of watching back in this field a little bit. I noticed that Rick Ravon, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but he kind of stacked some of these guys up. So it kind of broke apart this field past the top 5. Definitely kind of good on him, but I'm seeing about 2-3 wide battles there back in the pack.
This is scary. Glenn Lazan, Luis Gonzalez Nunez 3 wide with Henry Bennett. There goes Lazan. Caution will fly. He collects the 89 of Frankie Francicia. 8th caution of the day. These are 2 drivers who still had their faster pair available, but heavy impact, and there was just no way 3 wide was going to work in that portion of the racetrack. It was the 69, the 14, and the 007 that attempted it.
I will note that Glenn Luzon had a little bit of right side damage before that incident happened, but realistically, the incident was caused by Luis Gonzalez Nunez just kind of pushing it through. But he really wasn't given a choice just because Glenn Luzon was falling back out of the pack. But again, like you mentioned, that was 3 wide part of the track that really couldn't support 3 wide. Yeah, you could make the argument that Glenn Luzon probably could have maybe went like an inch or 2 up, and Luis Gonzalez maybe could have went an inch or 2 down, but realistically, that move was never going to sustain throughout the corner.
These drivers carry speeds upwards of 225, 230 if they're in the draft into the corners. With high speed comes high impact when these cars wreck, and wild rides we've seen here tonight, the latest there for Glenn Lozano, and we're going to go on board with Frankie Francica. Just absolutely nowhere to go. We talk about reaction time. Well, sometimes you have that split second to react. In this case, there was no split second.
That's it. Unfortunately, it was just realistically, there's nothing you could have done. Once you're on that outside line, it's the same thing we saw in Pocono at the opening race of the season. On the outside leg, you're just kind of along for the ride.
Frankie Francica. There you see ahead to 69 of Glenn Luzon. Very fortunate that really overall was just a 2-car incident. It was closer towards the back of the pack, so not that much oncoming traffic, but certainly in an area of the racetrack where maneuverability is very limited. So if that had been up at the front, we could have had maybe even the entire field caught up in that one. And another caution that could very likely completely tip on its head the fuel strategy that these drivers just 3 laps ago were planning on following.
So again, this kind of, I still don't think how we're currently set up. I think we're still on the outskirts of barely making it, which kind of leads you to interesting scenarios. I mean, obviously you can stay out an extra lap, get that extra lap of fuel, come in one more time, start the back of the pack, but I think you're still going to have to make that pit stop later on. Plus, you're going to have to deal with the fact that you're not going to be in this lead pack, and it seems like the top 5 kind of break away after every restart.
Well, the gloves certainly seem to be off. Maybe the more aggressive restart we've seen in the last couple of times of going back green. Drivers are realizing the laps are ticking away. We're getting closer to the end of this race. And we also should bring this up now, and we'll of course talk about it later on, but we mentioned the fact that Craig Forsyth, when he won this event back in Season 2, he won it under caution. There is the possibility that this race could end under the yellow flag. We do not have any overtime green-white checkers. It is the 200 laps since we dropped the green to start this race, and that is all that we run. So it doesn't necessarily mean that these drivers are running to lap 203. They could be running to lap 200, could be running to lap 201. It would all depend on if a caution would fly, when a caution would fly. And if you recall back in that race that Craig Forsyth won, he made, I think it was a 3-wide move up the middle on the front straightaway with about 5-6 laps to go. That move had him ahead at the time of the caution to win that race. These drivers here, with not knowing when or if that caution could come out, that throws a huge monkey wrench if you're the 2nd, 3rd, 4th place car on when to make that move, because it may be too soon. On the flip side, it could be too late.
And see, that's where it gets a little bit weird, because it's almost like a super speedway in effect of you don't want to be leading coming to the white flag in the Daytona 500. That's not really somewhere you want to be. I don't know if I want to, if I'm coming off of a restart, I don't know if I want to be leading coming to the white flag of the Indianapolis 500. Something just tells me it's not going to end the way I think it is.
Blocking with these cars, quite different from blocking with a stock car.
I mean, it's realistically, you only have one shot for these cars to block, and once you kind of made that shot, realistically, you're kind of, if you try to block again, you're most likely going to get yourself turned. So it's kind of risk versus reward there.
Green flag back in the air. Looked like we had a position change there, but I think that was by design. Gary Corley pulled to driver's left to let James Watson around him, and now Luis Gonzalez Nunez is going to take advantage as well to move up to 6th. Battle is going to be for 3rd place. Here he is late. Jeff Highsong battling with Jim Herrick for the third spot.
Just seeing Rick Rayvon making that move on AJ Hobson. I don't think Hobson's going to let this one die.
Yeah, he almost got brushed the wall there. Center 3 and 4 did Hobson. Those Firestones got very close to the safer barrier. As he's staying in touch with Rick Rayvon, he'll look to the inside, and now look at all the drivers darting low, trying to get a little bit of draft as they head back into turn 1. Tough break there for Frankie Franchicho, was having a great run here this evening. Going to be in the garage area, finishing in the 13th position, and kept his nose relatively clean the entire night, but at the end of the evening here, about 45 laps to go, that nose looked like a can opener.
And then seeing Jeff Highsong, of all people, slowly kind of working his way into this.
Talked about the stats of Greg Forsythe with his championship season here. Mentioned about the consistency of who appears is going to be the runner-up this season, Jeff Highsong. You go back to New Hampshire and Phoenix with races 5 and 6. Finished back-to-back 6th. The following 2 weeks, back-to-back 4ths. Then had 3 third-place finishes in a row, and then his highest finish, a runner-up finish at Gateway. He's finished in just about every position inside of the top 6, except for a win. Tonight could be the night at Indy. When you consider, too, the drivers we've mentioned that we've seen them get loose off the corner. Hobson, Rayvon, Herrick, we've talked about all them. We've not said much about the unsteadiness of that 18.
You know, it's kind of funny that you mentioned, we've seen almost all these really talented drivers start to wreck out of turn 4. I'm almost ready to call that turn 4 wall almost like the Montreal Wall of Champions. It has claimed a lot of drivers.
It has.
A lot of talented drivers, too.
Down there.
Yeah.
It has gotten its work here tonight as that inside safer barrier off of 4. And that outside barrier, too. I think that outside safer barrier that juts out is on a first-name basis with just about every driver's right rear tires. Seems to be what they brush just before they nose it into the inside safer barrier at the entrance of pit lane.
I'm just looking at Highsong here, and ignoring all the other Highsong things, I mean, realistically, I like where he is. Third place, in my opinion, is a great place to kind of hover around. As long as you're next to or around the leaders, you're kind of in that prime position where first and second go at it. You kind of have your choice where hopefully second is so focused on first, and first is so focused on second, they won't even see you coming. But you kind of have to use that wisely because, again, you can easily get yourself in a really bad scenario where it locks anyone else behind you out of a possible win.
Talking about the statistics there for Jeff Highsong, they could easily be argued as championship statistics. The only problem is the finishes that he had, Greg Forsythe would always finish 1 or 2 positions higher. So this always seeming to be a game of catch here for Highsong to the 27.
Just kind of seeing here, it's awesome to see Highsong, Herrick. Nice to see the group back. Just seeing a lot of these guys. I mean, it has been a full battle of attrition. I mean, there is currently 12 cars out of a 28-car field running on this track. That is incredible.
It's been a race of survival, that is for sure, as side-by-side there, and Eric's going to be able to hang on to the spot. Nick DeGroot putting the challenge to him, and with that side-by-side, that's going to stifle their momentum and bring James Watson into the mix. So a 3-man fight for the 4th position.
Obviously, with AJ Hobson falling off Rick Rayvon a little bit, this kind of opens up the door. In my opinion, AJ Hobson really needs to try and possibly short pit. I think I may saw a car back there in the pack.
Poorly. Yeah, I think he got the wall there somewhere in the vicinity of 1 and 2.
Honestly, he caught the wall. He cut the access road, almost took out Moskowitz. Ooh.
See, there's definitely damage on that left front wing. Looks like suspension on that left front tire skewed as well. Been a bit of a struggling night there for Gary Corley. Not the first time he's been up into the wall. Still has soldiered on. Currently in the 12th position. That's the lowest any driver currently running can finish, as everybody else is, for the most part, out of this race. Eric Peterson still sits on pit lane, but he is done for the day. He maybe just isn't that opportunity to observe what's going on around the racetrack, but he will finish 16th place here tonight as Bennett making a move there on Luis Gonzalez Nunez, and now looking topside on James Watson. So he's moved to 7th, now looking for 6th.
But going back to my previous point, if I'm AJ Hobson, I'm going to look to try and undercut Rick Rabon. Right now, I've kind of lost the battle on speed. He's over a second away. I don't think I'm getting his draft back. Right now, the best strategy for me is try and hopefully undercut Rick Rabon, maybe by a lap or two, see if I can maybe get one or two people to come with me. And hopefully, I'll make up that time on and off pit road where I'll be on the back bumper of Rick Rabon, where I'll be able to take advantage of that draft with new tires. Hopefully. Kind of cross your fingers. Hopefully this kind of comes out and works.
I like that call. So we went back green. Oh, did Herrick get the wall that time? It was really wide off of turn 4. Doesn't look like he's losing speed, so it may have been a close shave. But we went back green with 48 laps to go, so if we split it in half, we're looking at stints of 24 laps, which right now, based off our telemetry, would be within the next 8 to 9 laps. So do you maybe go the full distance that you possibly can and undercut a full distance run, or do you split this thing right in half, 24-24? Because basically, I would assume if you're going to come to pit lane, you're going to take on tires anyway. I don't see what advantage there would be of stretching it as far as you can possibly go to take on less fuel.
Realistically, the downside of the undercut strategy is most likely you're not going to be on the preferred strategy. You're going to end up having to do longer on the last stint. My guess is that Rick Rabon wants to do 24-24. That he wants to have equal stints on each. So, in my mind, I need to pit before that 24 mark to either A, force his hand into matching my strategy, or B, hopefully he doesn't match my strategy. I'm about a second quicker than him, even without the draft, where by the time he comes down the pit road, I would have gained the time, but I would have lost.
Well, I just said a word, and a light bulb flickered. Oh, whoa, Herrick definitely got the wall there, a little bit with the right rear tire. But I said the word fuel. We're trying to figure out why these drivers are snapping loose off the corner. When the fuel evaporates, it makes the back end lighter. So the loose sensation we're seeing these drivers have in the early going, it's only getting worse the more fuel that's consumed. So that actually, I was kind of blaming the tire grip, which that still could be a part of it, but certainly the fuel capacity lessening and making that back end lighter, that's got to be playing a part into all these spins that we're seeing as well.
I didn't think about it, but no, you kind of hit it right on the head there.
Makes it kind of a little bit of a nail biter here as we get longer into this run with upcoming pit stops.
You got to think where you kind of run that risk of taking less fuel, but you take less fuel, the car gets lighter. Listen, it gets. This is the part where I don't. Where it's like, man, just let me drive my car.
Swirling back here, this 3-car group of Hysong, Herrick, and Henry Bennett. Bennett right now is running some of the fastest lap times on the racetrack. He's been able to work his way from 9th now up to 6th and looking for more. If he completes these passes, he will be up in the 4th position and able to have at least a visual shot of the 2nd and 3rd place cars.
Kind of watching them and I'm trying to think of the strategies here. I'm trying to think how we're going to play this out, where right now Nick DeGroot, I think he's in that position where he's just trying to save fuel here at the moment, hoping to do whatever AJ Hobson doesn't. Rick Rabon's kind of at a disadvantage no matter what he does. Either he comes in early and people stay out longer and maybe try to make something work, or someone comes in early and Rick Rabon's having the one who's having to stay out and kind of deal with it. Where Nick DeGroot's kind of got the best of both worlds, where he's got the grand choice of if someone comes in early, he can stay out. If they both come in early, he can stay out, or just flip-flop the strategy.
And on board here with Henry Bennett, interesting. He's in the wake of Jim Herrick up ahead, remaining in 5th gear rather than upshifting to 6th gear, which is considered a draft gear here with these EW12 cars. He is closing, though, and maybe that's why he's laying down the lap times he is. Now he's going to shift it into 6th gear. 3 and 4, now downshifts it to the center 3 and 4, back to 5th gear. And mentioned the fact earlier on tonight that driver that sets the fastest lap of the race. Only 3 drivers tonight have been able to set a lap outside lower than the 40-lap bracket. Third fastest lap of the evening laid down by Gary Corley, a 39.987. Bruno Miranda, who retired out of this race very early, ran a 39.916, but the driver we were just on board with, Henry Bennett, currently holds the fastest lap turn today, 39.874 for the 007.
You gotta think, slowly but surely, your laps are ticking down. Your options are kind of dwindling here.
Root has gotten around A.J. Hobson and is running away with second place. That last time by, he was 8/100th quicker than Rick Raybon as Luis Gonzalez Nunez on pit road. This is a little bit earlier than splitting the final run in half, but, oh, actually, no, I think he had a problem. Looks like he's gotten out of the driver's seat. Something's happened to the pole sitter.
Again, kind of, when it rains, it pours for Luis Gonzalez Nunez, pulls it behind the wall. He is done for today, and that only leaves us, believe it or not, with 10 cars left running.
Might have made a mistake coming to pit road. Oh, yeah. Definitely would have gotten hit for speeding. And I think basically just threw up the white flag of surrender, knowing he was going to just have to serve the penalty. That's a tough break there for the guy that had the best 4-lap average to qualify his way on pole position for tonight's event. 4-time winner this season. Going to finish up inside of the top 4 in overall standings. Not certain exactly where in relation to Rick Raybon leading this race, but definitely going to be no lower than 4th as Rick gets loose there off of turn 4. And Nick DeGroot's coming to pit lane. He's going to get on safely, it looks like.
This is what I said.
That line that he hit with that cone, that's where pit road speed starts. The wall is not where pit road speed starts.
This is what I said. Realistically, right now, Nick DeGroot can kind of make it or break it here. Where if this is a really good pit stop, he really takes advantage of this, the time that he has of the fresh tires. He could slowly kind of claw back the time. I think Rick Raybon, seeing what Nick DeGroot has done, I think he's going to be on this time.
And as mentioned too, even on equal tires, Nick DeGroot was slowly chipping away at Rick Raybon's lead little by little. Now Rick is on pit road. Hobson and Herrick going to follow as well. Smoking the tires a little bit there was Hobson, trying to get it down to the 60-mile-per-hour pit speed.
Now Bennett is on the alternative strategy because right now he wasn't really in a great position to undercut. Right now, pitting with them wouldn't really gain him anything. So right now, he's on that alternative strategy where he could either pit maybe a lap or 2 later and have the fresher tires, or he could try to run it out and hopefully he gets a caution where it kind of bails him out, where he can pit again. Hopefully everyone follows him down. He has fresh tires and he can fight up there with the leaders.
Well, when everybody was really spread out there, Henry Bennett was running the fastest lap times on the racetrack. So depending on how many laps he thinks it would take for him to maybe get up into the vicinity of the race lead with fresh tires, this could play into his hands. DeGroot did not leapfrog Rick Raybon. 2.5 seconds behind Rick Raybon right now is the 89.
I said that didn't really work out too well for him, but now let's look at the rest of them. So you got Rick Raybon, Jim Herrick, A.J. Hobson. Jim Herrick actually hopped A.J. Hobson on pit road.
Now it is visibly closing between Raybon and DeGroot.
Henry Bennett's on pit road now.
Yep, going to hand the lead over to James Watson. This might be the first time tonight James Watson's been out in front. Oh no, actually I think Watson might have stayed out a lap early on the first cycle of green flag pit stops and gotten a lap led. DeGroot is now 2.4 seconds back, so he's closed it up a tenth. He is still running faster lap times than Rick Raybon, but I just don't know if 23 laps is enough time with how slowly he's closing up that gap between himself and the one, if he'd be able to be up there in time to battle for the win.
I don't think he would. And this is a point where you guys kind of got some guys jumping up and down like, man, I'm hoping for a caution, hoping for anything here to kind of get me back in this race. Because effectively, Rick Ravon's played this strategy perfectly. He's thwarted off Nick DeGroot doing his undercut strategy because he pitted so early where Nick DeGroot really wasn't able to take advantage of that strategy. And with him coming to pit road, both his competitors, Jim Herrick and AJ Hobson, both followed him down, and they had, if not bad, if not worse pit stops than he did.
Watson continues to stay out here. Saw Dylan Moskowitz on pit lane for his potentially final stop of the day. Slow stop for him as he was pretty lacking in track position, and he is going to be a lap down right now. He should cycle back on the lead lap when Watson, Hysong, Lazan, and McAdory all finally come to pit road. And you talk about drivers jumping up and down, hoping for a caution. We still do have 4 drivers that have to hit pit road, and we've seen already here tonight drivers spin off of turn 4 while attempting to make their way onto pit lane. So that possible late race caution, it's not out of the realm of possibility yet.
Kind of keep it in mind where some of these drivers still trying some strategy, hoping. So James Watson, Jeff Hysong, they're still hoping for a little bit of luck here. One caution kind of gets them back in this race in better position than they left.
Aaron going to make the pass on Hobson. That's for 8th place. When things cycle around, that would potentially be the battle for 4th. Ravon is now going to bypass Joe McAdory, who's coming to pit road in the 312. Ravon currently 2.7 seconds up on Nick DeGroot, 5.4 seconds up on Henry Bennett. And the lap times are way too close between those 3 for it to really be any kind of a factor of DeGroot or Bennett closing in on Rick Ravon coming to 20 to go.
That's all we're doing is just kind of watching this here. Because obviously laps have to fall right. And everything kind of has to fall into place. As it will right now, everything looks to be falling into place. But, again, one caution ruins us all.
Right on board with Nick DeGroot. You can see that car in the distance going into turn 2. That is the one of Rick Ravon. You can see that car ahead. How much of a visual distraction is that where you're trying to see, am I closing in on him? What can I do differently than what he's doing to try and make that gap closer? We've got a slower car here on the track. Ison's out of fuel.
Just pushed it a little bit.
Oh my gosh, Henry Bennett up into the catch fence as he got the 18 of Hysong off of turn 4. Caution is out for the 9th time.
Well, that was the caution Hysong was hoping for, but just he didn't want to be a part of it.
Oh gosh.
Well, I said they just keep dropping like flies here.
Hysong literally crabbing across the start-finish line, missing pit road entrance. Henry Bennett visited all 4 stories of the catch fence off of turn 4. Might have actually been above the catch fence. Caught the tail end of this. How did this all culminate? I'm pretty certain when we were on board with DeGroot, it looked like Hysong had run out of fuel. He was on the inside of the racetrack. And
yeah, I believe.
How does Bennett get him?
So I believe that Hysong was running out of fuel at that time. So when he saw that Henry Bennett was kind of coming up on him quick, he said, oh, I'll try and get out of his way and I'll move high. But at that point, Henry Bennett is already committed to going high. He's already committed to his regular racing lane. So unfortunately, when Hysong went high, Henry Bennett was already there and they just met in the middle.
Wild ride for Henry Bennett. If I recall correctly, he had, I believe, already used his fast repair, so I believe that is day done for the 007. Here's the onboard with Henry Bennett. I mean, watch the closing rate. There's no reaction time whatsoever. And I can understand if Hysong's moving high, to try and let Henry Bennett on by, but you're going to have to migrate down to the inside line anyway to come to pit road. A little surprised he decided to yield to the top side rather than move to the inside and let Henry Bennett around that way. I mean, Nick DeGroot got around him on the high side just moments before.
Well, as it now, this kind of puts everyone in a fun situation where now Rick Ravon and Nick DeGroot are right next to each other. And right now, I think really the right move is coming down and getting tires.
Bennett's day is done. 69 of Glenn Lazon had not come to pit road prior to that caution, so he will head for pit lane this time. And to your point, well, not, whoop! DeGroot's gonna make a late move there. I thought he was gonna stay out.
If I was DeGroot, I would have stayed out. I'm looking at the guys I got behind me. I've got Jim Herrick, I've got James Watson. I could potentially try and make a run for my money and hope that this pays off. But again, probably smart move to come down and get tires. He missed his pit stall.
Eric and Watson, they're going to be the two that are going to try and gain the track position by staying out. Herrick has 9-lap old tires, probably about 7 green flag laps on those Firestones. James Watson, he's only got 2 green flag laps on his tires. But everybody else that was on pit lane, they're going to be having fresh tires and potentially a little bit more grip advantage on this upcoming restart. We've seen a couple of drivers really have cautions fall their way to gain them track position. Jim Herrick, who's leading this race, was really the first one that stood out in the early going of this race. Short pitted what was starting the first cycle of green flag pit stops before the caution came out, and he was able to migrate his way from just barely inside the top 15 to up inside of the top 5. Now for the 69 of Glenn Lazon, since he hadn't come to pit lane, pitting now, he's going to be restarting in the 4th position.
And like I said, this is just going to be an all-out race of can we make it to the end or can I hold this guy off? It's going to be a wait and see.
Henry Bennett indeed has retired from the race. This will officially be, in the history of the Dark Horse 500, the smallest field to finish, as we have 9 drivers that are still running. All 9 are currently on the lead lap. Surprisingly, we still have 4 drivers that have their faster pair available. Jim Herrick, Rick Ravon, as well as Dylan Moskowitz and Joe McAdory. If we are to have any cautions between now and the end of the race, and with the lights out at the top of the pace car, it's going to be an 11-lap dash at this point in time. The question is, which flag are we racing to? Are we racing to the next yellow, or will we see the next flag in the hand of the flagman be that white flag to bring them back to the checkers?
We'll say some of these guys are definitely trying to race to that next caution. Hopefully, they're hoping to finish under yellow, but wait and see.
The survivors at this point: Herrick, Watson, Ravon, Lazon, and Hobson, your top 5. Then DeGroot, Moskowitz, Highsong, and McAdory. That is the remaining 9 drivers here to settle it out in the Dark Horse 500. Only 2 drivers are former winners of this event, so the odds of us going 5 for 5 and a different driver taking a checkered flag look pretty good. But Rick Ravon is trying to make history in more than one way. Rick Ravon is not only trying to be the first driver to be a multi-time winner of the Dark Horse 500, but he's looking to do it in back-to-back seasons. He has led the most laps here tonight. That's what he did 1 season ago as well before he picked up that checkered flag. We'll see if he can double down, but there's a bunch of hungry drivers both in front and behind him as Jim Herrick, the control car, up through the gears, and we're back underway.
Glenn Lazon did not get going off that restart. Nick DeGroot's kind of stuck behind AJ Hobson, and both those guys definitely missed out on the restart.
And now going to get stuck behind the slower Lazon. Didn't get going there when the 40 of Herrick accelerated. Now a huge gap there from Nick DeGroot up to the top 3 as the battle's on for the lead. Here comes Watson in the 39. Ravon looking 3 wide in the 3.
Both Watson and Herrick know what's at stake here. They know that Rick's on fresher tires. They know that even while they're still battling for this win, they're going to have to keep him behind.
Does this mean that if you're the 39 and the 40, it's time to start throwing blocks. I mean, is it worth the risk this early? You still got 13 laps to go at the line.
Realistically, right now you're at a tire deficit. Rick's definitely at a tire advantage. Right now you have to use what only thing you have, which is scare tactics. Hey,
that inside line, that short way around the racetrack. If the one's going to go by you, make him take the longer way around the track. Here we go, 3 wide, up the middle, Rick Ravon. Herrick's on the top, Watson on the bottom, and look at the fresh tires and the speed for Rick Ravon propel him to the lead.
I think that's pretty much game, set, match, unless those two in the back, with AJ Hobson and Nick DeGroot, have anything.
They are starting to close as well. This battling with the top.
Oh!
Watson completely misjudged. Gets the inside wall right back in front of, I believe that was Highsong. Now into the pit area. Cautions out for the 10th time tonight. As he comes to rest, I think that was in AJ Hobson's pit box.
Yeah, so there is a block thrown. Jeff Highsong had an amazing view of that. I don't know if I would want that view, but I thought he had it missed twice.
Look through that list of drivers who had a faster pair left. James Watson was not on that list, so that is day done for the driver, the 39. And let's go back and take a look. Rode the wall with the left front, that's all I know. Let's see if the replay gives some more in-depth idea of what happened off of turn 4.
Realistically, I think I was just in the moment racing. You weren't really paying attention of where you were or what you were doing. And unfortunately, it just kind of resulted in, hey, he threw a bad block, and unfortunately, they were just racing so hard they didn't pay attention. Man, they almost got both Hobson and DeGroot.
It's considered a block, but I don't think it was intended to be a block. If you watch Herrick, his line is following in the wake of Rick Ravon ahead. I don't think he knew James Watson was to his inside.
Yeah, I second that. I don't think he realized he was right beside him.
Just look at it again. See there, Ravon darts down to the inside. I think that Herrick was just following Rick. Unfortunately for Watson, he did have his right front. Actually, I thought it was AJ Hobson's pit box, but actually Watson comes to rest between Moskowitz and Hobson's pit boxes. It's a good thing that pit crews were very efficient, and the drivers that retired from the race and already dismantling their equipment. Otherwise, that would have been an extreme duck moment.
If we got out there with equipment.
Now, Watson, unfortunately, as mentioned, that's his day done. He's going to finish 9th here tonight. Bennett, who we already mentioned is out of the race, he'll be finishing in 10th. And then there were 8, with less than 10 to go. I don't know if there was necessarily any damage sustained by Jim Herrick on that.
But either way, this will be very difficult for AJ Hobson and Nick DeGroot with Jim Herrick there, just because Herrick is on older tires. The advantage that Rick Ravon has for himself at the moment is just Jim Herrick is on old tires here, and he will kind of hold up this restart. The advantage that AJ Hobson and Nick DeGroot have, that they both are fast drivers, they both know how to work together, and I think they both want to work together and make sure we beat the one.
Now here's the disadvantage, though. We know Rick Ravon, he's not coming off the bottom. And Nick DeGroot's been there before. When he won this event back in Season 4, I believe it was. Yeah, it was Season 4. He pretty much, at the close of the race, just held those left sides down the white line through the corners, kept it down the inside on the straightaway, said, hey, if you're going to pass me for this win, you got to take the longer way around the racetrack. Rick Ravon's been out front for a majority of this race. We know he's got a good race car. We've seen him be able to hook that inside line. So for any of those other drivers behind him, yeah, they might be faster, they might be able to control the draft, but unless they get to his inside, I'm not necessarily certain they're going to be able to pass him.
That's why I think it's going to be definitely kind of one of those last-minute decisions, but I think it's going to come all the way down to the wire.
And remember, too, Rick Ravon is going to be the control car. He's going to get to choose when these drivers accelerate. We've seen drivers be able to get a gap and maintain it here today. I don't know if necessarily there's a thing as being too far out in front here on this upcoming restart, allowing second place on back to kind of rubber band and reel you in with a big run.
trying to figure out here. Who in the back of this pack might have maybe a slight shot at this. Man, there is only 8 cars on the lead lap. Right now, it is truly a battle of attrition.
I might be wrong, and if I am, I apologize, but I believe of the drivers that are currently still running, Jim Herrick, Dylan Moskowitz, Glenn Lazan, Jeff Highsong, and Joe McAdory. If they're able to win here tonight, it would be their first career win in the Dark Horse Racing Series. Green flag back in the air. Battle's going to be for third, it looks like. The group showed the nose on Hobson. Tucks back in line. 2.5 car lengths, maybe. From Raybon back to Herrick. Herrick's got a big run. Look at that. And he's going to get to the inside. Nothing that Rick Raybon could do to block that momentum.
Well, color me surprised, but yeah. Oh, Hobson! The wall.
And now he's going to collect the Groot. Caution's going to fly again as the Groot's car lodged into the outside wall in turn 3. Hobson, a little further up, has come to a stop as well. I think we're still going to be able to have enough laps for a restart, but cautions,
we're in cars.
Cautions, my goodness.
We're running out of cars here. We will only have 6 cars in the lead lap after this.
I don't think we've got enough cars to be able to even have a clash.
Let's
go back and take a look. Raybon did a good job after Herrick got around him of cutting off the momentum of Hobson and DeGroot to slot into second place, and I think that Hobson then tried to jump to the outside of Rick Raybon. DeGroot was already there. There's the contact. Man, DeGroot's car just went from, 190 to 0 in I don't know how many seconds, like 0.00001 seconds. Hobson was actually able to refire his car, but could not drive away. So both drivers having to take the teleportation to pit road, and pretty certain that both of these drivers had already used their fast repair up to this point.
Wow.
Here's the onboard with DeGroot.
So I guess let's evaluate around. So Jim Herrick, surprisingly still fast, even on those old tires. Really gave me a big shock, but obviously right now he's at a disadvantage because Rick Raybon is behind him and has that big toe draft that realistically is going to be an issue. Rick Raybon, we know is fast, know he has tires, know he has the skill. Then past that, we go on to Dylan Moskowitz, which Moskowitz doesn't look to have any damage on his car. And honestly, we haven't really talked about it.
What does he have? Yeah, we've not seen him up here towards the front pretty much the entirety of the race. What's he been holding back?
Then you got Jeff Highsong, and Highsong, he's been a little bit everywhere. Highsong's been a little bit everywhere. He saw a little bit of everything. He's got the momentum. We know he's got the talent. Just don't know if he has the speed today. Then we go on Glenn Lazan, and Glenn Lazan, same thing. Man's been a little bit everywhere. He's got right side damage. He's going to be a little bit hurt on straight line speed. But again, at this point, if you made it this far, I think you've got a solid chance. Then Joe McAdory, which, truth be told, I think if you ask Joe McAdory right now, he's probably surprised he's still running. So, realistically, anything, the sky's the limit.
Jim Herrick and Dylan Moskowitz, their best finish in the Dark Horse 500, both of them came back in Season 4, when Herrick finished in 3rd and Moskowitz finished in 6th. We obviously know that Rick Raybon is a former winner of this event from last season. I'll check and see about Highsong. I believe he might have actually also had his best finish in Season 4. Actually, no, he had back-to-back 4th place finishes, Season 4 and Season 5, where he finished in the 4th position.
All right, lights of the pace car are out. It's lap 198. We're going to go back green 199. Whatever flag comes out next is going to end it.
Pretty much.
Whether it be yellow, whether it be check.
This is bring home the trophy or bring home the steering wheel, and there's a lot of steering wheels getting brought home here tonight already.
Honestly, I'm liking Moskowitz's position here. But
Song there as well. He's still got speed.
honestly, I'm just cheering on top two to
that one.
I'm cheering on top two to get in the wreck. That's what I'm doing.
Rick Ravon's led the most laps tonight, but I think the pace car might be giving him a run for his money. Not sure.
Again, we tied the 11th caution of the race, so I mean,
we did.
One more caution, we break that record.
We've also broken the record for fewest cars running at the end of a Dark Horse 500.
It has been a bloodbath today.
It has.
A lot of oil.
I didn't know that Indianapolis was going to steal the moniker from Bristol as the last great Coliseum.
And shockingly enough, like I said, it has been a true battle of attrition today.
So DeGroot's going to finish 7th. Hobson's going to finish 8th. Neither driver is going to make it to the conclusion of this one. They both are sitting on pit lane trying to get damage repaired, but there's definitely not enough time, not enough laps for them to be able to get back out there, be a factor. It's down to 6 drivers. Herrick, Ravon, Moskowitz, Hysong, Lazan, and McAdory. Who do you have your money on? We're going to find out who's going to get the checkered flag here.
Moskowitz with the Herrick. Interesting strategy.
Yeah. Jumping
I don't
there
know about
to the inside.
that.
Maybe making sure that nobody's going to jump to his inside on this restart.
I mean, that basically just handed it to Hysong. But here we go. Basically, it's these 4 I really think have a decent shot at this.
Jim Herrick. He doesn't have a bumper, but whatever is back there, he's going to have to make it as wide as possible because Rick Ravon's going to have a big run on him off of turn 2. In turn, so does Hysong in the 18.
He's kind of in the middle here. Hysong's making a run at it.
He's going to jump to the top, and he's going to go to 2nd alongside of Rick Ravon. Ravon goes back to the point. Hysong slots to 2nd. Herrick now back to 3rd.
For Hysong, just a few laps ago, got ramped over by another car.
Now he's trying to snake his way down the front straightaway. Break the draft is Rick Ravon, but Hysong stays with him. So does Jim Herrick. It's like a conga line down the front straightaway as they take it single file into turn 1. Moskowitz still in this draft. Joe McAdory's up in the 5th position. He's still within striking distance.
Now Rick Ravon's trying to flex his muscles a little bit. He's got that better straight line speed. He's got the better speed in single car, but Hysong's got the draft.
Remember, Jim Herrick is on older tires than the rest of the field around, and that might be why he's fallen off as he has. It's now a 2-horse race. Rick Ravon is looking for his 4th win on the season, which would tie him with Craig Forsyth and Luis Gonzalez-Nunez for most wins this season. The only other driver that has a victory this year is Eric Schaus. It's really been the trio of Nunez, Ravon, and Forsyth that have dominated the trips to victory lane.
I'm seeing Ravon do an aggressive swerve trying to break the draft, but I think all he's really doing is actually hurting his own straight line speed.
Well, Jeff Hysong says, hey, wherever you're going, I'm going with you. Trying to stay in touch. He's not let the gap grow any more than 2 car lengths. The question is, though, does he need another car behind him, or does he have enough power to be able to generate his own run here, coming to 2 to go?
I think he might need another car behind him, but honestly, at this point, he's going to have to try something different because he's not gaining that time that he needs.
Oh, here we go. Big run on the front straightaway to the start-finish line. Jumps to the top side going into turn 1. Don't think that's going to work. What he might be trying to do is set up a move to the outside and then cross over to the inside off the back straightaway. But no, stays about a groove higher here off the 2nd corner.
I think realistically, he's going to need to try and figure out something here. He's going to have to try and use the bottom, but he's got to figure out a way to get to the bottom.
Jeff Hysong has finished in every position in the top 6 this season except for P1. This time by 2.5 laps between Hysong and his first victory, Rick Ravon and his 2nd trip to victory lane in as many seasons in the Dark Horse 500 at Indy.
Realistically, I think that's really hurting Hysong not getting to the bottom of the track and the corners.
Maybe not able to get down there, being in the wake of the 1 car. Might be getting a little arrow tight. Gap is now opened up to 3 car lengths. Unless Ravon makes a mistake, I think he's going to be home free here through 3 and 4. Hysong, one last attempt.
I'd say I think Hysong really needs to nail these corners.
Rick Ravon, last year's champion, or correction, season 3 champion, and a former winner of the Dark Horse 500, now will be a multi-time winner of the Dark Horse 500 as he takes the checkered flag tonight. He's going to get to kiss the Yard of Bricks.
And isn't that a story for Jeff Hysong? Too little, too late. just comes up just short, but like I said, next season, I think he will really be a threat.
Jeff Hysong, I believe this is his third or fourth runner-up finish on the season. It is his second runner-up finish on the season, my apologies. Almost able to get the victory here tonight, but Rick Ravon, one of the strongest cars of the evening, able to keep them at bay. His fourth win on the season. Jim Herrick was able to hang on for third. Dylan Moscow brings it home in fourth. And Joe McAdory sets a career number tonight. His best finish in the Dark Horse Racing Series, 5th place here at Indianapolis. Also a career night for Glenn Lazan, as he'll be bringing it home in 6th. And Rick Ravon going to salute the fans here at Indianapolis as he takes a victory lap here around this 2.5 mile speedway / super speedway. It was a long, arduous, grueling race for these drivers. We had very few survivors at the end. But Rick Ravon, really, for the most part, the one front runner who didn't encounter hardly any issues. I don't think he encountered really any issues at all tonight. He'd lose the lead, he'd get it right back. Never had to use his fast repair. Clean race all night long and reaps the rewards.
That combined with the champion, I mean, it's kind of surprising the champion didn't even finish the race.
Congratulations once again to Craig Forsyth, as he is your Season 6 Dark Horse Racing Series champion. With this victory here tonight for Rick Ravon, he will finish third, I believe, in the overall standings. Maybe second. We'll have to wait on that because he was only 14 points behind Jeff Hysong, and this is a double points race. Most laps. It's going to be close for second place, I do believe, between himself and Hysong, but he will be on the podium, regardless of whether it's second or third, for the final season standings. Same for Hysong. And Craig Forsyth will head into Season 7 as the defending champ of the series. Rick Ravon parks it on the start-finish line. And we'll be talking with him in just a few moments as his crew runs out to celebrate with him. Let's take a look at the finishing results from tonight's event. And again, your top 6, pretty much the survivors of this race. From Ravon down to Lazan, DeGroot in 7th, Hobson 8th, Watson and Bennett complete the top 10. We talked about it coming into tonight, Matt, the fact that the championship was pretty much all but decided. There were a couple of long shots, but very unlikely that Craig Forsyth was going to lose that championship trophy. So for everybody else, the mission was clear. Go out there and finish out the season with a victory, or for the one-off drivers, go out there and trophy hunt. Definitely with the race of attrition we saw, it seems like that was the mentality all the way through the field.
Absolutely. You just got to remember, it has been an uphill battle ever since this green flag dropped, where we started with 28 cars and we've dwindled all the way down to, I mean, honestly, 6 cars in the lead lap. There is honestly about 5 competitive cars if you minus Glenn Lazan with all the damage he had on his car. That's it. It came down to, as long as you had a functioning car, you had a shot at this race.
Well, let's see if we can go down trackside and talk with our podium finishers. A gutsy call gets him third place here tonight. Let's see if we can talk with Jim Herrick. Hey, Jim, Matt and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yes, I do. How you doing?
Doing good. Good to see you back out there on the racetrack and up front here tonight in the closing stages. Saw you play that strategy to gain the track position, gain the lead. Little bit off on tires with the other drivers around you. Was that the deciding factor there on that final restart?
It could have been. I'm not really sure if the tires were the thing at the end. We tried something a little different. Since Craig was out, he was up on my pit wall, and he suggested that it may be low fuel more than tires that was causing the car to get loose at the end. So we went with a full tank, and then I didn't take tires at the end. I don't know if that was the right call or not, but it didn't work out too bad. But really, on the last restart, those guys they got my draft, and there's really not much you can do. The leader's kind of a sitting duck there, and I think the problem, it may have been the tires that kept me from staying in their draft. They went by me so fast, and I had to lift a little to stay out of their dirty air and make it through the turn, and then I just kind of lost them and couldn't catch up by the checkered.
So, Jim, you had an up and down race. I mean, you're here, you're there, you didn't wreck, but obviously with how much of his race turned into a battle of attrition, I mean, did you find it difficult at any point to just kind of keep clear of all of this?
Yeah, the set got really difficult to drive when it got light on fuel. It would start pushing, and especially in turn one, you'd get kind of a big push, and then coming out of turn two, it would snap loose. And it was kind of the same thing in 3 and 4, just not quite as bad. I think it had to do with the wind blowing down the front stretch. But yeah, as the car started to get light, it was just a question of, trying to be the last guy who can hang on to it and not, either not crash or just not make that big mistake where you have to lift and lose that much momentum. And yeah, I was just able to hang on, I guess, today a little better than most.
Well, Jim, back-to-back podium finishes here in the Dark Horse 500 for you. Tremendous job here tonight. Congratulations on the great performance, and we'll now give it the opportunity to do some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank 4D Racewear, our sponsor, and thank my teammate Craig. Like I said, he was integral, being on the pit wall and helping me out, especially because I had to make that the call on the last fuel stop. Didn't know how much to put in, and so I want to give a shout out to him and to my family. I had a bunch of family down this weekend. My birthday was yesterday, so this is a great birthday present for me, and just want to say hi and thanks to them for coming to visit. Yeah, thanks to you guys for doing the broadcast, and everyone at Dark Horse who spends the time to put on a really great series.
Well, the perseverance pays off for Jim Herrick. He's third place here tonight in the season finale at Indianapolis. Congratulations once again on the great run. Go and enjoy it. Go get some rest. I'm sure he must be exhausted after this one.
Yeah, it was a challenging race, staying in it mentally, and yeah, I'm definitely tired, so I'm gonna take a break tonight. So yeah, thank you a lot.
As Jim Herrick brings it home P3 here this evening at Indianapolis. Let's see if we can get the driver that brings it home second place here tonight. Been a very consistent year for Jeff Hysong. Jeff, Matt, and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
I do. How you doing?
Man, I'll tell you what, we've talked to you the last couple of weeks. You've had some great finishes up in the podium. You've been close to getting that first victory. It was right there in front of you on that final restart. What little more did you need to be able to get up there and wrestle it away from Raybon?
Probably fresh tires, man. I mean, the track was so hot and then just slippery that once you had 12 laps on your tires, they were pretty much toast.
Now, I've got to ask. Obviously, we've seen you avoid wrecks. We saw you in wrecks. We saw a car ramp off you. And then just to kind of come back around and be in second place out of really the battle of attrition this was. How difficult was this race?
I mean, it was pretty wild to tell you the truth. Once you got 10 laps into the run, the car just became pretty much unpredictable. It would push. It would get loose at the rear end. I mean, it was basically just about holding it together till the pit stops. And then, yeah, unfortunately, there on that last run, I wanted to lead a lap, and I was coming to the pits that next lap, and the rear end just got loose on me out of 2, and I tried to come around to the pits, and unfortunately, I feel so bad. Henry was caught up in my mess.
Well, Jeff, obviously, as we mentioned, you've had a very consistent season. You're going to be finishing out the year inside the top 3 in overall point standings. We're not sure if it's going to be second or third based off the one winning tonight to be in a double points race. But, man, obviously a season to be proud of. Certainly got to think you'll be carrying some really good momentum into Season 7. Before we let you go, though, we're going to give the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Big shout out to my family. Thanks for supporting me and letting me do this. My wife and mother-in-law for watching the kids. Big shout out to the boys for all the work they do and the good work they've been doing. Congratulations to Rick. That was a hell of a drive. And then a big congrats to Craig. He drove a hell of a season. He had some races where he had to fight his way back from the back. And yeah, big hats off to him and the work he did. And then thanks to you guys and all the great work you guys do.
That's Jeff Hysong, brings it home second place here tonight in the season finale, and what was an incredible overall season for this 18 car. Congratulations once again, Jeff, and looking forward to seeing what you do in Season 7.
Yeah, thanks guys. Looking forward to next season.
And let's see if we can now go down to victory lane. By the way, points are official. Championship goes to Craig Forsyth. Hysong finished in third, 10 points behind this driver, who will finish second in the overall standings. Hey Rick, it's Matt and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
What's happening, guys?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, a lot of torn up cars here tonight, but your car in one piece, not really a ding or a dent on it, kept your nose clean all day long, up in front for a majority of this race. Came into this event, one of 4 former winners, had the pressure on to try and be a multi-time winner of the Dark Horse 500, and you do it in back-to-back seasons. I mean, where does this rank in relation to that first Dark Horse 500 win? Does it mean as much? Does it mean more?
It's hard to say, but that first Dark Horse win was a monkey I wanted to get off my back because I had a real good shot at a Dark Horse 500 win and was taken out. In turn 2 was, an incident that shouldn't have happened. I felt like, geez, so close. So that was gratifying in that respect. But to back it up with this, I mean, this was a totally different type of race. Normally with these DW12s, you're stuck like glue, and the tires, they last throughout the entire run, 18 and a half gallons. By the end of the run, it gets a little iffy, but you could kind of hang on to it. But today, for some reason, the temperature just skyrocketed, and the track temperature went up so much. And I guess we were used to about 90-degree track temps, so we were dealing with 115 at some points during the race. And I'm like, wow, and I was pushing going in behind somebody. I was loose coming out. And I guess I kind of liked it. I was happy to see it because what it did was it really turned it into a driver's track. If you didn't know how to sort of balance the car going through the corners and sort of deal with the loose and the push, actually in the same corner it would be loose and push. And if you didn't know how to deal with that, you were just going to drop back. So I was able to take advantage of that and start pulling away at some points. But I mean, it was just a fantastic race. There was strategy involved. I'm sorry to see some of the top contenders go out with incidents. That's a shame. But I kind of figured that was coming because of the condition of the racetrack. It got a lot more tricky, and everybody, myself included, who practiced for this race, did not expect this. So if you weren't prepared for it, it could really catch you out, and it catch you out real quick and bite you hard.
So I've got to ask, Rick, I mean, with the kind of turn this race took, I mean, it was pretty much, there were certain points where it looked like you had it in the bag, and then there was a certain point where it was kind of iffy, and then, hey, it looks like he's back on the comeback trail, and then, oh, he's back in a wreck. So, I mean, kind of, how did you deal with, like, the roller coaster of emotions?
Well, I was afraid that the yellow was going to come out at one point. I started pulling away from Hobson. I got to thank Hobson. He at some point during the race, he just decided to go balls to the wall. And when he did that, everybody else was really saving fuel. But when he did that, I realized, oh, wow, it's really difficult to get around somebody when they're flat out. So I figured if I could get around Hobson, maybe I could pull away. And that's exactly what happened. But at some point, I think I had about 3 seconds on DeGroot, and there was one pit stop to go. And so I figured if I came in and out and had a good stop, I was waiting to see what DeGroot was going to do because he's so savvy. They don't come much smarter. His track savvy is incredible. I knew that when he pitted, he was going to go for the undercut. So I was just waiting for him to pit. And when he pitted, I came in just to at least keep our tires even, because if you get to beyond 0.7 of a second, you can't reel somebody in. You got to be within 0.7 to pick up that draft and start reeling them in. So I had enough of a gap, I think 2.5, maybe 3 seconds on DeGroot, to where I knew if we had equal pit stops and I maintained that gap, he wasn't going to run me down, because we had good pace. We were at least even with DeGroot, so chances that he would run me down would be slim. And so after that pit stop, I was like, okay, you know what, we're in good shape. And then the yellow came out. Now it's do I pitch? Should I get tires? Are they going to stay out? So we decided to pit to get the tires because we wanted the advantage. Unfortunately, everybody came in with us, so I was happy to see that. But again, it was just you knew those last few laps were going to be crazy because everybody's got fresh tires. And once the tires start to wear, it starts pushing behind somebody. But everybody's on freshies, and it was just it was like a bunch of Cheerios in a bowl.
Well, Rick, obviously a lot of different things accomplished here tonight. 4th win on the season, which puts you in the 3-way tie for most wins on the season between yourself, Forsythe, and Nunez. You finished 2nd in the overall standings as a result of this victory, and more importantly, now the only driver to have won this Dark Horse 500 event multiple times, and you do it in back-to-back seasons. So congratulations on the job well done here tonight. Before we let you go, we're going to hand the mic over to you and let you do some Victory Lane thank you, sponsors, and shout-outs.
All right. I just wanted to point out I moved to Indiana, about 8 miles away from the Speedway here, which is a dream come true. And in the midst of that move, I missed a couple of races. So had I not missed those races, I think I would have had a good shot at the championship. But Craig, I want to congratulate Craig Forsythe. He was hard to beat the whole year. Very consistent, very smooth. I love racing with him. There's some people out there that you have to be careful racing around, even if you give them all the room in the world. You can make contact, and there's guys like Craig who you can race side by side, for 50 laps and not have an issue. So I want to congratulate Craig on a great season. I just wish I didn't miss those 2 races, but it's great to be here in Indiana. It's a dream come true, and here we are again in Victory Lane. I want to thank the guys that put on the show, obviously. Dark Horse, great league. I want to thank the drivers out there, everybody who raced hard and raced clean. We got a 0X, speaking of racing clean. But all that was going on out there, we actually ended up with a 0X. So I'm pretty proud of that. I want to thank you guys at FRN. Thanks so much for covering our great races here. Thanks to everybody out there watching who supports this league. Thanks to my wife, Alana. I love you so much. Thanks to my 2 daughters, Zoe and Mila. I miss you guys so much. You just have no idea how much I miss you. And last but not least, of course, thank you to the Lord Jesus for giving me life and dying on the cross for me. I love you, Jesus. I love you. And that's about it. Thanks, guys. God bless you.
Rick Ravon, 2-time winner of the Dark Horse 500. He gets to burn it down and kiss the yard of bricks here tonight at Indianapolis. Congratulations, Rick. We'll let you get back to celebrating, and looking forward to seeing you carry this momentum into Season 7.
Yeah, that would be great. We had momentum, and then, we got taken out the last 3 races, even after we came back. But, you said momentum is everything, and hopefully it'll be on our side next season. But we'll just have to wait and see. But looking forward to it. It's going to be another great Dark Horse season.
Indeed it is. Rick Ravon, the winner here tonight at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And that is going to bring our lengthy coverage to an end here tonight. Matt, 11 cautions during the course of this race, 38 lead changes amongst 12 different drivers. Ravon obviously leading the most laps at 91, and actually looked and saw that him, along with Joe McAdory, the only 2 drivers that finished this race with 0 incident points. I believe you mentioned before we came on the air there actually was a cash prize up for grabs for the drivers that kept it clean here tonight.
That's correct. If the race winner had 0 incident points and won the race, well, I mean, yeah, it's been a long day. If it had 0 incident points and won the race, they get a cash prize courtesy of Charles Teed and the Dark Horse Racing Series of 100 U.S. smackaroons.
So obviously, the season comes to a close. Drivers now set their sights on Season 7. We touched on this quite a bit during the course of this race, but Certainly looking like a lot of storylines, a lot of drivers that were contenders this season, certainly going to carry over into next season. Drivers that looked like they were consistent top 10 drivers, might see them up inside the top 5 next year. Certainly looking like the competition going to continue to be strong. Despite the fact that we only had 4 different winners this season, we had a lot of drivers that were very close to getting their first win of the season or first win of their overall Dark Horse career. You kind of get the feeling we might see the exact same thing next year.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, Craig Forsyth, Rick Ravon, they are just pretty much nightmares whenever you come to the track. I mean, you can be pretty assured that one of them are most likely going to win. Obviously, you've got Matt Wagner, you've got Jeff Heisong. Jeff Heisong really, I think, is going to take that next step next season of being one of those guys who are really a championship contender, of how consistent he was towards the end of this season and really how he ended off the season. Easily, he could have won that if something went differently.
Well, Rick Ravon wins in back-to-back seasons this event at Indianapolis, but another driver made history as well in back-to-back races. Congratulations in leading the field to green and not wrecking the pace car, because I still have memories of what happened back in season 4.
Didn't wreck the pace car. I got told that. Truth be told, it waits to be seen if I'm invited back next year.
Well, you did a great job, and I appreciate you in the booth here tonight. No, it was a long one. Hopefully everyone enjoyed our coverage, but man, it was great to be able to call this one with you.
Absolutely. Always a joy.
Thanks to everybody that tuned into our coverage here tonight. The season finale, the Dark Horse 500 for the Dark Horse Racing Series, presented by Troy Lee Designs. For Matthew Rodriguez, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your night, folks, as Rick Ravon is your winner here tonight at Indianapolis. You've been watching another broadcast courtesy of FRN, the Flat Out Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flat Out Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flat Out Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flat Out Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.